Dr. Munshi, man.
All right, man. Back again. Part 2, baby.
Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, this is a pleasure. First, I wanted to say thank you for that lunch you took me out to.
Yeah, man.
It's really interesting whenever I find someone who isn't necessarily in the same industry that I am, but still shares the love of entrepreneurship. And I wanted to say that after that lunch, whenever someone has like a good idea or a good pitch or is onto something, it's funny how that energy or that like attention to detail or the sake of progress, it just is infectious. So like after that lunch, I was like thinking to myself, in a very good way, like what more could I do? Like whenever people around me are getting things done, it's almost like a fire under my ass. Like, man, they're doing something and he's doing something or she's doing something.
Yeah, man.
What could I be doing? How could I be bettering myself? So I wanted to say thank you because that lunch was a big catalyst for the things that we were talking about off the record. And it really helped me kind of push over that hump and get started on something that I cannot wait to unveil in a couple of months.
I'm happy to hear that. I had a great time at that lunch too, man. It was a great lunch, and it's always good to just kind of talk it out with somebody else that you respect and can kind of understand, you know? So it was just as helpful for me that it was for you, it looks like, you know? And no, we'll do it again soon. But I've noticed that too, man. You got to surround yourself around people who are doing things, who are going somewhere, who are working hard, right? And like you said, it is, in fact, it does get to you. It does motivate you, you know? I always try to do that myself because you always want to surround yourself around people who are doing better than you. You don't want to be, you know, you don't always want to be the highest guy in the room, you know? It's better to learn from these guys who are successful, who are entrepreneurs, who have been there, done that, right? And that's how you learn, and that's how you pick things up, right? And so you just got to keep doing that, keep connecting with people, keep talking with people, and, you know, that's how you grow as a person. That's how you learn because most of the stuff, you know, successful people, what I've seen, they're not going to just voluntarily tell you their secrets or they're not going to tell you what they did. But if you could connect with them on a human level and talk about things you're passionate about, you talk about what you're passionate about. And sometimes that's when things start flowing and the light bulb starts going off, man.
I'll also say this too. I don't know if it's like a male thing, but I find that older men tend to be a lot more forgiving or accommodating for younger men.
Yeah.
Because like I have a lot of mentors, or not even necessarily mentors, but like a lot of older men that are, maybe they're in business, maybe they're in the markets, maybe they're in like real estate, whatever it is that they're kind of accumulating their wealth with. And it's interesting to see how they've taken so many people, not necessarily just me, but like other people as well, under their wing.
Yes.
And it's interesting to see, like you see this like 40, 50-year-old, and then you'll have like this 25-year-old guy kind of like shadowing him or helping him with something, or just kind of, I can't tell you how many times I've been to dinner. It's like been me, him, their attorney, my attorney, and like an extra. And I'm like, who's this guy?
This is what I think it is, right? As long as you're not direct competition, they'll take you under your wing, man. But if you're direct competition, they'll be like, don't invite this guy, man. Don't get this guy in here.
That is very fair.
And I think that's what it is. And I think that age group, that's what I've noticed too, right? The guys who are successful, like physicians, right? Who are doing some of the similar things that I'm doing in my impact physician group, right? The guys who have been there, their kids are in college, they're winding down. They have no problem talking to me. They did it. And they see a young guy that reminds them of themselves, and they want to help out. But you find some young guy who's doing the same thing you are, who maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, they're not going to be as upfront or they're not going to be as inviting. That's what I've seen, you know, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? I totally get it. I'm not saying that I would do the same thing or I wouldn't do the same thing, but I understand the dynamics when it comes to business and entrepreneurship and, you know, trying to make money. It is what it is.
It's a fascinating remedy to also a lot of the, I don't want to say like, you know, discomfort or discontent I have, but, you know, a lot of people talk about the trajectory of America or the trajectory of these, like, you know, the next generation, all this other stuff. I find some solace in knowing that these things have always happened. There's always been like this, you know, underclassmen who have kind of taken on roles that are being left behind by the previous generation, and in a lot of cases are being molded by the previous generation.
I love it. Yeah, I agree.
So it's like they'll take, you know, you ever heard the quote, like, you know, I stand on the shoulders of giants?
Yeah.
A lot of how I'm doing whatever I'm doing right now, I'll be the first person to tell you, not a single thing that I've done has been like exclusively me.
Yeah.
It has always been in conjunction with someone who's
Absolutely.
helped me either with information, with capital, with something.
You know, that brings a good point. That's something I really love about the Association of Ringside Physicians, which I am a board member, up for re-election, by the way. But
Vote for me.
Vote for me, right? But I guess what I'm saying is that we have an emeritus board, right? So what that is that the OG docs who have been doing this for so long, they may be sitting on the board, 3, 4, 5 terms, maybe president. But if you get nominated, which everybody does that have put a lot of work in, they get to be on the emeritus board. Now, what that does is you don't have a vote, right? But you're able to attend all the meetings. People listen to you. Your input matters. And what you say, people do listen to. They're not just going to brush it to the side. But this way, you allow younger leaders to take those positions, right? You can mentor them, but still have a seat at the table. And I think nowadays, like in politics, you see like there's people who are really old, like who just won't leave. Like, you know what I mean?
The geriocracy.
They won't go. They just won't leave. And then it kind of makes it difficult for the younger new generation to come up when you're competing with them and not collaborating with them and not being trained by them or not, being educated by them to one day take their spot, So I think, and all across America, all across the world, that's one thing that I really realized with the ARP is that they're trying to train young doctors. They're trying to train other people to do these roles, to do a good job, to go into leadership, you know what I'm saying? And not having this, well, there's these 10 guys who have been sitting there forever and they're going to keep running it until they get kicked off. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
But I think that goes back to what you're saying,
It would be the inverse of what we're talking about because there's always that equal and opposite reaction. It's like, for every one individual who is that guy in his 40s or 50s or maybe even late 30s, like maybe if there's like hyper successful, who takes on that younger student or mentor role, you have maybe 3 or 4, I'm kind of just throwing out bullshit numbers, who are doing the inverse.
Yeah.
Like you were saying about the competitive nature of it. Maybe they're still climbing themselves. But I still think that isn't necessarily like, I think there's either scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset.
Fair enough.
And it's either, you look at competition, granted it's capitalism. So like there's always that competitive factor, but usually that competitive factor happens from like a horizontal, like me and then another businessman, either older or same age as me. Very rarely am I like, sweating the guy who's 10 years younger than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm only 32, so they're still in school, right?
Yeah, they got a ways to go.
But if it is the case where like, you're doing fine, you might not be the monopoly, you might not be the oligopoly, but you might be just in your own little niche and you're being successful. Yeah. I found that even like 35-year-olds, 36-year-olds who are still on the ascent themselves, still the good ones at least, still take that time to take on like someone who might be 5 or 6 years younger than them. Yeah. Maybe they see something in them like that critical thinking, that work ethic, maybe the combination of both. Maybe it's just the soft skills. Like maybe they're super intelligent and then they see someone with all the soft skills to do like the selling and they'll be like, hey, this guy could be a good person for my team, but I'm going to have to mentor him to get him to that level. And just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys, thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second. I'd greatly appreciate it. And on with the show. That's
what I try to do. I'm sure everybody has noticed, I always have a medical student or always have a resident. I always have, right? And I try to select somebody who is passionate.
When did you start doing that?
Honestly,
like right when you started, or
I wouldn't say right when I started because I had to get in first, right? Mm-hmm. Once I got in and got well established here in St. Louis, that's pretty much when I started to do it, right? So I would say it has been about 6 years now, 5 to 6 years. I always will have at least one resident, right, or somebody who's in med school, who's passionate about Ringside medicine, who wants to do it. Because whenever I started, the first time I did it was when I was an attending. I never got like somebody I followed
holding
or something,
hand,
holding my hand, or at least showing me what to do, right? I started doing that, and I've had about three people so far. I've had medical students, come shadow. We got a great guy, Vince, right now, who's been following me for the past few years. He's an ER resident.
Was he at the last Shamrock
show?
Yeah,
last year.
Nice.
He actually, he did Muay Thai, so he knows the drill, So I try to do that.
If they've been in combat sports, obviously.
Obviously, right? They understand the game, right? So I try to do that just because we need good people in our sport, right? We need people who are passionate about it. We don't want to pick people who are there for the wrong reasons. And if somebody is there for the right reason and they're going to dedicate their career and some of their time to this genuinely, then we owe it to ourselves to help these people out, right? Because we're always not going to be there.
Can I ask you a question? What would stipulate the wrong reason? Like when you say like we want people there for the right reasons, can you give me one example of something that you would
Yeah.
constitute as the wrong
I would
reason?
quote Tim Lukanoff, like they're there because they think that the show is about them, right?
They want to plug their Instagram. And,
You know, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do social media and you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that, but some people love combat sports. You know what I'm saying? They live it, they breathe it, and it's a passion, whether they're sitting cage side or whether they're watching from home. You know what I'm saying? And for them, it's a privilege to even be a part of it. And that's how I feel, right? It's a privilege, right? This is not a right. This is not this or that. It's a privilege that I can do something that I love. And the commissions allow me to have that role. And I think that's what it is. It's just genuinely in your heart, right? Are you doing this because you want to give back to the sport? You know what I'm saying? And if that's the reason, then hit me up, man. You'll be in.
God bless. Speaking of finding yourselves in those positions and working with the state athletic commissions, if you don't mind, I'd like to segue to this past weekend.
Man.
Where you were one of the physicians or the ringside physician. Like, what were you for the Holloway Poirier 3?
I was one of the ringside physicians, just like in Missouri. Same thing. We had a total of 5 physicians. The UFC, whenever they're in town, they always require 5 physicians. They want 2 physicians working in one corner, 2 physicians working in another corner, and 1 physician who's designated cut man. So in real time, when people get lacerations, that they'll go and stitch them up. So I was privileged and fortunate to be one of the physicians working ringside in one of the corners.
Forgive me, when you say cut man, you don't mean like the cut man in between
No,
rounds.
so like a
you
suture,
mean like after the fight is over, they're going to the back
like
and they're getting...
For example, like our example, like, you know, at your last show, like, yo, bro, you got to wait till the end, man.
Yeah,
like,
unfortunately.
But
luckily for me, I was the end.
With the UFC, they're like, no, you got to go right now. Like, you know, so right after the fight, we'll assess them. And then if they need suturing, then in real time while the show is going on, there's 1 physician who will go back in real time and suture them up right away.
Do you think there's value in having 2 physicians at a local MMA show?
Yeah.
Now that you're talking about that?
I think the more physicians, the better. Okay. Yeah. I think obviously you don't have too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But I would say is like, and that's what I try to do with having these residents or medical students, right? They're not officially working, right? But they're doctors, you know what I'm saying, or doctors in training. And if you were sick and you went to the ER, you would see them, right? So they're still able to help. They're still able to kind of bridge the gap.
Well, I just like the idea, speaking on this topic specifically, like my example is I had to wait until after the show was over for you to then stitch me up, right?
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I didn't have to wait that long because I was the main event, right?
Yeah.
But if I would have been the
Second
first
guy,
fight,
yeah,
then I'm going to have to
sucks.
wait 3.5 hours and you're probably going to have to open the cut back up because by then it'll start closing up.
Yeah.
So like, don't you think there's a little bit of value?
Yes.
And I'm just like kind of doing a little bit of inside baseball here. Is there value in having a second physician? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a static, like Junaid is the ringside and other physician B is designated suitor guy. Like you guys can interchange, or maybe it is better to have like the designated roles.
I think if you ask me, right?
Yeah.
If you're just say, hey,
I am asking you.
No cost involved, no nothing involved. Just like, what do you think? I think 2 doctors is good. I think so because that way, one guy can always be a ringside regardless of what's happening. Because by law, you have to have a doctor at ringside. All right, one time when I was in Louisiana, I went to the bathroom and they're like, "Where's the doctor?" I was like, "Oh, I'm up here." They could have started, right? So I think 1 has to stay at ringside, right? But if we have 1 more, right, who can kind of go back and forth and check on the guy right afterwards, suture him up or whatever.
Yeah, the float guy.
A float guy, and then if they're not floating, then 1's in the red corner, 1's in the blue corner. I think that would be ideal. But you know, there's a lot of factors that go into all that, right? But if you were just to ask me off the cusp, I would say that's pretty much what I would do. And that's what I try to do every show, is that I'll have Vince or I'll have another medical student or somebody. So therefore, like, let's say there's somebody who we saw, and we're like, he's okay, but we need to check on him in 5 minutes. So I can send them back and be like, yo, just go check on him, talk to him, let me know what's going on if something comes up. Or a lot of times, you know, like, you know, after the fight, everyone's like, I'm good, doc, everything's good. And then it's like, yo, I think I broke my hand 20 minutes later, right? Because after the adrenaline wears off, then they'll go try to find somebody. So I think 2 doctors would be ideal.
That's a very good point, because if you ask me 2 minutes after the fight is done, even if I lost, I have that adrenaline in me. I don't feel a damn thing. But if you ask me 30 minutes, then I start to feel all the little aches and pains. You're
exactly right. So I think 2 would be good, and the EMS team is good. Like, we have a pretty good EMS team most of the time. The good thing is that this EMS guys, they're like the same few guys. They like doing it.
You're talking about in the state of Missouri.
Yeah. So a lot of time, I would say like 60 to 70% of the time, it's the same one or two guys, and now they've been kind of with us and working with us. So I don't have to every show like tell them, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They already know the drill. So having a good EMS squad is definitely part of it, because they can help a lot, especially in this in-between phase. But I would say 2 would be ideal, right? And and that's why I don't just pick like random person or somebody else. I try to pick a medical student or a resident, right, who's a doctor in training, who can at least fill that void or fill that role, right? And then still
And
get
you're
that
also
experience.
just providing a service to the promotion, because I'm sure if they do get paid, it's minimal if they get paid.
They're doing it for free, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But
so, by the way, thanks, guys.
They're doing it for free, but what they're getting is their
experience.
experience and their resume. Because if, let's say, they go to a different state, like one of the other guys who I think his name was Jeff before, right? He went to Florida. He came to our conference, right? He followed me for about 2 years, right? I hooked him up with the Florida docs, and they were going to help him out, right? So if you go to the commission or you go to a doc, right, and you're like, hey, I followed Dr. Munshi, for 2 years, they're going to be like, okay. You know what I mean?
That's so funny that you say that, because before you got here, I was actually talking with my producer about how important it is to have some sort of like, it's not even a side hustle, but some sort of side work that is outside of what you normally do, that 9 to 5, because it creates the opportunities to network.
Yes,
so like
right.
you might do the 9 to 5. Let's say you make $250 a year and you're fine.
Yeah.
You can go home and bills are paid and the fridge is full and all your needs are met. The problem with that is Monday through Friday, you're going to be in the same place with the same people doing the same thing. So then how often are you getting out there to network or to introduce yourself to new people? Because then you just don't know by serendipity or by proxy, like what you'll hear or what someone might need. And then they could be like, oh, well, Junaid's got a guy who did this. And because he did that, maybe that's the guy we choose for something completely unrelated.
No, you have to have something else going on, man. And that's what.
Not even a side hustle. It might not, you might be fine with money. I would still tell someone like, okay, you never know.
Yeah.
And then do something you're passionate about. It won't feel like work.
I think so. And I think the key phrase you're saying is passion, right?
Yes.
Find something you're passionate about, because what I've learned is you can be doing something you love or whatever, but if you do it 9 to 5 every day for year on year on year on year, and I mean, to say that the passion is going to be the same, I mean, come on, man, it's not, right? So you got to find something that puts that fire under your feet again, or just gets the juices flowing, right? You got to have something like that in your life, man. I think that's the key to happiness. I saw a lot of doctors, they were just, they're like, they started off and they've been doing it for 30, 40 years, and they're just burnt out and kind of stuck and not happy, but they can't get out, right? You know what I'm trying to say? And they don't have anything else, and they're just stuck. And I'm like, man, you got to avoid that from happening. You know what I'm saying? And you never want that to happen. You always want to have something, maybe not every day, right? Maybe that's a little bit too far-fetched, but at least once in a while, you're waking up like, yo, I got something to look forward to. Like this week, we're going to be doing this, and like in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to work hard, but then we're going to be doing this, right? You need something to look forward to, man. Yeah, that you're passionate about, that you're going to do, because if not, you just get stuck in this like, you're just like going through the motions all the time.
That's a good point too. One of my favorite quotes is like, even a porn star wakes up in the mornings and says, I got to go to work. Yeah. Right. So like, it doesn't really necessarily matter what the job is over the course of time. Yeah. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, so to speak. But forgive me if you don't mind, I'm going to take us back to Louisiana.
Yeah.
Because you were one of the 5 ringside physicians.
Yes, sir.
And before we talk about the night of the fights and stuff like that, can we briefly just discuss like how you found yourself in that position?
Yeah. So look, I've always kept good relations with the Louisiana Boxing Commission. Okay.
I believe you spoke about that last time.
Yeah. Especially Jimbo Stevenson. I got to give a big shout out to him, right? And long time ago, when I was in Louisiana, just a guy coming out of residency starting, they gave me the opportunity to be a ringside doc. Right. And what they did for me led to a lot of great things in my life, and I always kept in contact with them. I always kept in good relations with them. I tried to go back at least once a year just to be present, show my face, help them out with the fight. Right. I did a couple boxing shows. The last one before the UFC was Matchroom Boxing, when Regis Prograis defended one of his belts, right? So I've always kind of tried to go back and lead a lending hand, especially on a big night where you need multiple doctors, right? You can find doctors, but are you going to find 5 doctors who have been doing this, routinely and are super experienced? So I always let them know, like, anytime you need me for anything, you let me know. and I'll come down there,
Big,
right?
small,
Big,
all of
small,
it.
whatever. If you're in a bind, you don't have a doc, let me know. If I can make it, I can come. So I've always been in there. You know what I'm saying? And I've always just kept in touch with these guys, you know, and they've seen me, right? They've seen, you know, the stuff that I've done in my life, and they followed me along too. And they, a lot of times they'll have young docs who are starting, and they'll be like, yo, talk to Dr. Munshi. You need to get involved with the ARP. You need to do what he did, get involved with some organizations, get some more training, right? So I've helped them too, just with other docs, or connecting them or getting them in, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Anything they would ever need, I made myself available. And I always kept in touch, and I always tried to just go back, give back, you know what I'm saying, and just be there. And for me, it's just a way to show appreciation myself, right? Just to go back, shake their hand, thank them, you know,
Yeah,
because they do have,
in a way, they helped make you.
they do, yeah, they have a big role in what has happened, right? Like I said on the previous podcast, when I came here and emailed Tim, the first thing he did was call them, and they vouched for me, right? So I owe them a lot, you know what I'm saying? And I'll never forget that. And anytime anytime they need me, I'll be there. And basically what I did was I found out that the UFC was going to go to New Orleans before they even announced it. Okay. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, they're coming. Okay. Dustin's last fight, you know what I'm saying? Let me know if you need my help. I'll be there in a second. And they said, yes, we're going to need your help. And anyway, long story short,
Nice.
you know,
So it wasn't that you were just like sitting at home chilling or whatever, and they called you.
Bro, no,
you were kind of hungry for it, and then you
yeah.
let it be known. I think there's like a value in that story though, because a lot of times people think that, you know, they'll set something up and that they'll kind of like wait for opportunities to come to them.
No.
And I think that the value in what you just said is a constant reminder to people that no matter the position, no matter the skill set, no matter the tenure, you should still have that hunger.
Yeah, and I know, like, New Orleans is a city that used to be a huge boxing town. Muhammad Ali fought there. Mike Tyson fought there, right? So there's been big fights, like in the 70s, you know, before, right? Before our time, let's say, right? But New Orleans is an iconic city, and there's going to be some fights that go there that are going to be big. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to happen every year, but once in a while there is going to be. And I always knew that. You know what I'm saying? But yes, if I would have not reached out, or if I would have just sat around, there's no way I would have got it, because there was a lot of doctors who were trying to work that night.
That are also doing this exact same thing
there
you're
was
doing. If you need a doc.
There was a lot of guys who were trying to work that night. And fortunately, my relationship with the Louisiana Boxing Commission that I still have to this day, they still trust in me, they still respect me, and they still know that, hey, Dr. Munshi's going to come and do a good job and have our back, right? And that's the reason, I think that's the reason why I was selected.
There's a quote that I like and dislike, and that's, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I like to do the caveat or the addition to that. It's like, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and what you know.
Yeah.
Because if
and what did you do for them?
exactly.
Right? You know
Because
what I'm saying?
value has to be reciprocated.
Yeah. If they know, you got to know these people, but you have to hold some value to them too.
I don't think there's anything worse than being an individual who is surrounded by exceptional individuals and you offer no value to them, because it'll be a constant reminder that you're beneath them.
Yeah. You know what I'm
And
saying?
I hate to say it that way,
Yeah.
but it's like if I'm surrounded by, it doesn't even, it's not even tied to wealth. Let's take the wealth out of it.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm surrounded by MMA coaches like Mike Rogers and Steve Berger, like the who's who of St. Louis MMA coaches.
Yeah.
But when I'm surrounded by them, none of them ask for my opinion. None of them need me to cover a class.
Yeah.
That is a reflection of what they think of me and like what they think of my skill set and my abilities. It's like, oh, clearly I'm no value to these people.
Yeah.
I needed to do something to kind of up my game.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I said what I said of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But it is also what you know, because you can know everybody, but if you don't know shit and you can't provide
then what are you going to
value,
do for them,
what are
right?
gonna
You
do
can't
for
be a
them?
liability.
Well, you don't want to be a charity either.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want anything I
Exactly.
don't deserve.
Exactly. You don't want to be a charity case, right? You don't want to be just, because my dad knows this guy, or this guy knows
It's
this guy, I got
nice.
the
It's
job.
nice to get through the door like that,
Yeah.
but
You're
you
not
don't want to
gonna be-
feel like you stayed in the room
You
because
don't
want to
be that guy that night.
No,
You know, everybody will know. You know what I'm
I
saying?
agree.
You know what I mean? You don't want to be that guy, right? You want to be. But that's how I got it. But there was a lot of people that wanted that
hungry
position,
for
right? So I have to give big thanks, because it was a big night, and it was a privilege, and one of the highlights of my ringside career so far, man, to work that night. It was incredible.
Can I ask you the compare and contrast? And I'm by no means trying to
Yeah.
like poo-poo on the local shows,
Yeah.
but I mean the UFC is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me like the difference between working a Shamrock or an NFA and working the UFC?
Yeah, the stress level is whoop.
Better not fuck up.
Better not. there's gonna be
You'll
like,
be on Twitter.
I mean, like, it's gonna, yeah. So I think the stress level is way high, bro. Okay, fine, because there's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people watching, right? And
they will scrutinize everything.
They will say a lot of things like, look, whenever I'm in the hospital, right? I talk to the patient and this and that. Talking to the patient, maybe there's a family member, right? On this stage, there's how many millions of people watching? I don't know, but there's a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? So everything you do is kind of under the microscope. So there's a little bit more anxiety before, more pressure, I would say, right?
Yeah, for
Put it that way.
sure.
I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? And I think that you're a little bit more on your heels. You know what I'm trying to say? And this is the big leagues, right? It doesn't get bigger than the UFC. What else are
Not
you
in
going to do,
MMA,
right?
I agree.
So I think that you are very focused on making sure you do a good job, making sure you're prepared, making sure you don't mess up, you know, all of those things, right? So I think it's a humbling experience. Let's put it that way, right? Like at a Shamrock show or a local show, right? Obviously people are watching and things can go wrong and this and the third, right? But if you make a big mistake on a big stage, that could be the end of it.
Yeah.
In ringside medicine, if you stop a fight that you shouldn't, or you make a big mistake, you're not going to get called back, man. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's you know what I think a little bit different than the other shows.
Can I ask you this? And I fully acknowledge the connotation between, like, you know, risk and reward. But let me ask you this: by the same flip of that coin, I would agree with everything that you're saying about, you know, at this elevated stage, every single thing that you're doing is being hyper scrutinized. However, it could also be in the positive.
Yeah.
So, like, if you do make a right call,
correct.
if you do
Yeah.
make some sort of adjustment, or you change because of your decision, the trajectory of that fight changes for the better.
Yeah.
Then you get your roses, right?
And an example of that is that, long story short, many years ago, there was a big fight in New Orleans, the World Boxing Super Series, and I had to make a very critical call. And that call was the right call to make without going, I don't want to go all into it, right? But it was the right call to make, and it did get a lot of media coverage afterwards, very positive of what I did, right? And at the UFC show, the commissioner brought that up.
No shit.
So they remembered, right?
How long ago was that, you think?
That was about 7-8 years ago.
Damn.
So they remembered that, under pressure, under the lights,
He
Dr.
delivered.
Munshi did the right thing, and he still said, remember when that, you know what I mean? So they remembered. So just like what you're saying, when you do make the right call, the reward is great. And so yeah, it can go both ways, right? And the reward is way better afterwards. Like the way that you feel afterwards is way different, right? You know what I'm saying? After a successful night, right? But it is with anything, right? The higher the stakes, right? The higher the pressure, but pressure makes diamonds, right? You know what I'm trying to say?
You worked the Missouri when the UFC came to St. Louis. You worked that event as well.
Yeah.
I would like to understand, though, if you could kind of compare and contrast the night, because this was not just like an average UFC.
All right. Yeah.
The marketing, the build
Yeah.
up, the fact that it was
Yeah.
Dustin's swan song
Yeah.
and the culmination of his career.
Yeah.
Can you kind of just briefly and take as much time
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
want? I would love to understand, like, you know, what were like some of the emotions and the energy at that St. Louis show?
Yeah.
And what were some of the emotions and the energy for this Louisiana show specifically?
Yeah. So I think with the let's start with the Louisiana show, right?
Yes.
The UFC did it right.
Yeah, dude.
They did it
Yes, they
right,
did.
man. Like, I mean, this got to be probably the best send-off retirement fight that they have ever done. I got to New Orleans on Wednesday, right? The fight was on Saturday, right? And everybody
Was it
goes,
just buzz everywhere?
Yes. When you go to New Orleans, like, I'm going to Mardi Gras. I'm going to a bachelor party, right? I'm going to the music festival. I'm going to the, blah, 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 right? It had a Vegas feel in New Orleans, which I've never felt before, right? Everybody was there for Dustin. Everybody was there for the UFC. Every bar on Bourbon Street has Dustin's picture up,
No shit.
It was rocking, right? The casino everywhere.
Was
know
it
what I'm saying?
popping in terms of,
it
like,
was
numbers?
Popping. It was
Yeah.
popping. The UFC stayed on the hotel on Bourbon Street, right in the middle of Bourbon Street. So, like, the whole thing, like, there was people outside waiting. I ran into one of this ladies. She was working at the mall, and she's like, she found out, like, my wife knew or somebody. Anyway, so we started talking, and she found out I was a ring. She's like, "Oh my God, my son does MMA. I bought him a ticket to a hotel room just so he can stay in the lobby." You know what I'm trying to say? Like, people
Because
were
because the UFC fighters were hanging out there,
right? So the buzz in New Orleans is usually Mardi Gras party, bachelor party, blah 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 blah. But it was a Vegas feel in New Orleans, which I've never felt before. It felt like a fight town, a fight weekend, right?
When they were in St. Louis, was it not as intense, you think?
It was not as intense, no.
And by the way, I'm not trying to say that,
Yeah.
like, because some people will be like, "Oh, St. Louis." I love St. Louis.
no,
but what I'm trying to say
yeah.
is, I'm not downing St. Louis.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is amplifying Louisiana specifically for this
for
one.
this fight. For this fight,
it's the culmination of Dustin's career.
Yeah, exactly. The buzz was there, right? So everything was great. We got there Wednesday. They got media stuff. I was there for everything, right? I mean, I'm there for the press stuff. I was there for the physicals. You know, I helped out with the physicals, obviously, the actual weigh-in, the ceremonial weigh-in. You know, all the stuff, and they did it right, man. And the one thing I could say, man, is that this for Louisiana, for the people there, right? This was not just another fight.
Yeah.
This was not just another fighter. This was their hero, okay? This was somebody that they've been watching their entire career, right? This is somebody who they genuinely love, man, right? And you could feel it, man. You could feel it that night, man. It gave me goosebumps, man. You know what I'm saying? And when that Lil Wayne walked out and that beat dropped, bro, I have heard stadiums be loud, okay? But the screams were emotional, right? The screams were coming from the heart, right? They were saying thank you, you know? And Dustin said it the whole week. I'm just a kid living my dream, right? But when people that you respect and follow like that, it makes you think of your own dreams. It makes you think of what you want to accomplish. And it was palpable, man. It pulled on your heartstring, man. It was such an emotional night for Louisiana. It was such an emotional night for New Orleans, right? That was the difference. The emotion, the you know what I'm saying? You could feel it, man.
Did it bring it out of you?
Yeah.
Did it make you emotional?
Because it was like a full circle moment, man. Because I'm standing there and I'm like, how the hell did I end up here? You know? And I'm thinking, man, this whole journey started here, man.
You started counting your blessings.
Remember midget boxing? I'm like, could you believe?
Brother, some people call my fights midget boxing.
But I was like, holy shit, man. Like, I did these local fights here. And if somebody would have told me that night at midget boxing that this eventually is going to lead to you being a ringside physician at the BMF title, Dustin Poirier against Max Holloway in New Orleans, sold out Smoothie King Center, and you're a doc here, I would have just laughed at them, right? But that's what happened. You know what I'm saying? And that is what put it apart than any other fight that I've worked, okay? And Louisiana has that, that soul food. It has that different feeling in New Orleans, right?
There's a lot of culture in that town.
It's a different culture, and I think that he got an amazing send off, and I hope I work big fights like this again, and I hope I will, and I probably will, right? But without a doubt, right, this is gonna be top 3 of my career for sure.
I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's one of those things about we were talking earlier about who helping and what helping, but you're also kind of building this resume. So the more fights like this you work, then whenever fights like this appear, they're like, oh, well, this guy's already done 2 of these, or well, now he's done 4 of these. Oh, well, dude, this guy's done 10 of these. Let's call him.
Exactly.
It's like success begets more success.
Exactly.
But let me ask you this, out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Do you think the next local show you will work? I am not asking. Obviously, this is kind of a loaded question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Do you think that some of that passion will dilute because now you've seen a new peak?
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. If all you work is a Shamrock event, then that's all you know. But then if you work, a PFL, that's slightly bigger. If you work an LFA, that's slightly bigger. If you work a UFC, that's slightly bigger. If you work, a monumental UFC, that's better than the regular UFCs. It's different working an Apex show than Louisiana, right?
Sure.
So I'd be curious to ask, and I will, is are you worried that now when you go back to, a Shamrock show or an NFA show, will it kind of dilute some of that passion?
No, not at all. Because the role is different, right? And okay, so for that show, that's a special show, right?
Yeah.
That's a once in a lifetime thing. That's not.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But it may well. What I'm saying is that I might work big fights, right? But for me to be in New Orleans, in Louisiana, where it started, Dustin Poirier's, that's a different emotional charged event, right? You get what I'm trying to say? It's a little bit different. So I think that experience itself is once in a lifetime. That caliber of fight, hopefully not, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Now, when I'm in a local show, it's different, right? I think my local shows are more legacy, right, than this, right? These are good for your resume, good for your experience. But what I do in my hometown, what I do for my local people, what I do for my local fighters, right? That's what I want to be remembered by. I don't want to be, oh, this guy, he did these big fights and he's a hot shot. And no. I want to be like, yo, Dr. Munshi, man, he worked here for 30 years. He was at every show. He did so good. He helped us out. And that's, you know what I'm saying? It's a different purpose.
Do you think those are mutually exclusive, or do you think you could do both?
You could do both. You can
Like, I don't think
definitely
you
do
can
both.
work every UFC,
Yeah,
but if the
you can do
UFC is
both.
like, let's say in Missouri or Louisiana.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and it's like that's the thing in psychology, like the positive reinforcement, right?
Yes.
Like you can't just give everyone $1 every time they do something good. Once in a while you get $1, right? You know what I'm saying? So that way you enforce positive behavior, right? So I think these type of shows are good once in a while, right? Because it would get diluted if you do it every week.
If every day's a peak, that's the new norm.
If you do UFC every week, right? Then
And
it's
yeah,
not
and then
gonna-
doing Shamrock or
Yeah.
doing a local show
Even-
is going to feel different.
Even if you do UFC every week, it's gonna.
Yeah.
It's not.
There's gonna be
it's
good
gonna
cards
like
and bad
whatever,
cards.
It's gonna be like whatever, bro. Right? It's not gonna be as fulfilling or exciting or whatnot. So I think, obviously, if they're like,
let me
if
ask
you
you
get the
this, though.
opportunity, then you would do that. But I think right now what I'm doing is a great balance.
Agreed, but let me ask you this, because we've been talking about you being the box doc and all the stuff with fighting, but you also have like the day job, the 9 to 5 that pays
Yeah.
the bills, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what was it like going from that weekend to then Monday going back?
Yeah. Bro, it was like
That adrenaline
basically,
dump.
it was like, phew. It's like,
All right, Gertrude, here's what's wrong with you.
Luckily, like the fight ended, and we were there. We had some people we had to take care of afterwards and whatnot. So anyway, long story short, I got back to my hotel at like 2. Right, our flight was at 7:00. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, we have to leave at 5. I can't go to sleep. My wife and kids were there. Okay, so they were all in Louisiana and whatnot. So I'm there, right? So I'm like, all right. So I took a shower, I packed up my stuff. I'm like, let me work on my social media posts right now. Let me just like make them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
While I'm here. And then I came back, didn't sleep, slept on the flight, came back. We were just like lazy all day. Went to bed early, went to work, and then it was a good day at work. It was a good day at work. Like half the people were like, "Yo, UFC."
Yeah, I was gonna
So like
say.
it was still going, because everybody knew that I was there and asking me about it. So it was still fun, and it took me like a day or two just to decompress, bro. It was so high energy, right? Even the day when I came back, I was still buzzing. You know what I'm saying? So it took a day or two just to kind of settle back down, man, right? But now at the end of the week, I'm back in motion, and it's all good.
It's funny that you say that, because those are the exact emotions that I felt as a fighter.
Yeah.
Like, you have the fight, but it's like the culmination of like camp and everything. So like,
Yeah.
the fight is over, duly noted. But then like the next day, dude, there would be 2 nights in my life where I got like the least amount of sleep ever. The night before the fight,
and after,
and then the night after the fight. Because the
I
night
know.
before the fight, you're like, if he does this, I'm going to do that. And if he does that, then I'm going to answer with this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the night after the fight, you're like, what should I have done instead of
Yeah,
this?
you're, like, replaying
dude, you're hyper-
everything,
And then
bro.
you're on your phone, because if you win a
I
fight, I Israel Adesanya said something similar to this after one of his fights, but like, I remember every time I won a fight, the amount of like overwhelming admiration and love that I
First
felt.
24 hours, man,
I equate it to, it is the only time a man gets to ever feel what it's like to be a hot 18-year-old girl. You know what I mean? Or 21-year-old girl.
Yeah,
like her Instagram is blown up all day, every day.
Yeah.
But as a man,
Yeah.
like, dude, after a fight that I won, it's like 100 notifications. Oh my God, I'm so popular.
Yeah. No, for
It takes a little bit to like
Yeah.
the fight is over, but
it's
dude,
not over.
Sunday after that Saturday, you're still on this like
you're not down.
high.
You're still
that
not, yeah.
happened. I did that.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I felt the exact same thing that you're saying of like, okay, Monday like half, and then Tuesday half of that half,
Yeah.
and then by Wednesday it's like, all
Thursday,
right, I'm back to
all right,
normal.
I'm back. All right,
Yeah, I'm
back-
not as special as I thought I was.
back to
Rent's
work.
due.
Back to work. There's another UFC card this weekend.
Yes, exactly. and then it's on to the next.
It's on to the next, right? Yeah. So but you're right, man. Like it's hard to just like turn off afterwards.
You were also there. I mean, as a card, as a
Yeah.
collective. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I
Yeah.
do want to acknowledge that it was
It was
phenomenal,
It was
banger of a
incredible,
card.
bro. It was like one of the best. I mean, the best card I've seen in person for sure, right?
A lot of them went the distance in absolute like back and forth
Yeah.
battles. I
Yeah.
think that might take the cake for like the card where there was so many wars that resulted in decisions.
Yeah, man.
Like even the main event,
yeah.
like Holloway drops Poirier in the
Yeah.
first, then Poirier drops Holloway in the second, and then Poirier gets dropped in the third, and then they somehow go to a decision. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And by the way, you know what's funny about that
intense.
energy in the crowd that you say?
Yeah.
At the end of the second round, I don't know if you guys noticed this,
man, it was
but when Poirier
loud.
dropped
Yeah.
Holloway with like the last 15 seconds,
He did the guillotine, man. He went for the guillotine.
he went for the
He
guillotine.
went for it.
But he was sitting in his guard and he was throwing elbows, and the bell went off.
He couldn't even. I didn't even hear it.
And the fighters were like did the bell
Bro,
go off?
I didn't even hear it. I'm sitting ringside.
Yes,
That's how loud it was.
That's
bro.
what I was trying to say. It's like, dude, the amount of energy in that room. The round ended and no one fucking
I'm like, what
knew.
the hell? The bell went off.
Even
I'm like,
Dustin
holy
was
shit.
like,
Yeah. Like, luckily he stopped.
Should I hit him
right?
again?
But I didn't even hear it, man.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting right next to. I'm like the guys right there ringing the bell. Like, you know what I mean? But it was loud, man. Like
As
it was
a
crazy.
card, how difficult is it for you? Because like you're there to do a job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you're also
Yeah.
a fan, so like,
Yeah. No, it's to
can you
sit-
cheer? Can you cheer? Like, is that
Well,
like,
what I typically, I mean, you
Or do
can.
you have to be like, you
well,
know,
I think
stoic?
what I do is I will clap or something after the round for both fighters. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
you're-
you can't be like,
you're
yeah, bro.
Switzerland.
You can't be like, kick his ass. And
I
then
just didn't know if you could. Like you start getting up and like, yeah, and they're
Yeah.
like, shh,
They're like,
sit the
shut
fuck
up, bro.
down. Yeah.
You got to be neutral. It's
Yeah.
like, be like, no one's neutral in this whole stadium, man. It's like, no. So you know, I mean, like that's kind of what I do. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? But obviously, the 18, it was sold out. It was like close to 19,000 people. I mean, everybody was there and hoping that Dustin wins. I mean, obviously, right? But yeah, I would say that I'm used to that position, right? So it's not difficult or something anymore, right? You know what I mean? And you know, it is what it is, right? But it was amazing to see that fight in person right there. Like, I mean, like I said, I got the best seat in the house, right?
Dude,
that night. And I mean,
in a lot of ways.
in a lot of ways, right? So it was pretty incredible, man. It was pretty incredible.
Can I ask you a question? And if you don't want to answer, how old
Yeah.
are you?
40. I just turned 40
So you just
June
turned
3rd.
40.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, like, you know, is this something? I don't know if you've ever put any thought into this. So, like,
Yeah.
if you don't, then by all means, tell
Yeah,
me. Have you thought about like how long you want to do some of this line of work? Like, based on that lunch that we had, it's clear that you have like kind of like some irons in the fire.
Yeah.
in terms of like the long term trajectory of your life. But I'm talking more about like. You strike me as the kind of guy that if you had 100 million in the bank right now, I think you'd still be doing this.
Yeah, I'll be doing it. I'm not
because
gonna,
it's fun.
I'll do it until I physically can't get in the ring.
So that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Is like, so like 60, 70.
Yeah,
if
no,
you
no.
can.
I'll keep doing it, and I'm gonna keep training. I'm gonna keep training young guys who want to do it, right? And if it ever comes to the point where I physically can't do it, I'm still gonna come to the fights, every fight, and help out and have the younger guys do the
Do
work.
all the heavy lifting.
yeah, and I'll still be there to mentor them and help them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I am gonna continue to do that forever, as long as I can.
God bless.
I mean, that's what I love to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, ever since I started to do, I think the local shows, right? I haven't really missed any, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't. You know what I mean? And I make that a priority. And I love doing it. You know what I'm saying? And the great thing about it is my family and friends, they also know that, right?
Supportive.
So if there's a party or if there's something going on, I mean, if there's like a big wedding or something, and obviously I'm gonna go, right?
yeah.
But if there's some other stuff, they know I ain't coming. Like, you know what I'm saying? They know that. They're like, oh, he has a fight, he's not gonna come, right? So it's to the point where everybody knows that and they respect that. And it's not like, oh, he didn't show up or he didn't do this. They're like, he has a fight, he's not coming. You know
It's
what I mean?
funny. It's funny that you say these things because, like, I never took this into consideration. For me, I was always the fighter. I was never the coach. I was never any of these things. But a lot of the things that you were saying are very reminiscent to how I was as a fighter. Whenever I had a fight coming up, if I was in camp, no one asked me out to dinner. Everyone's like, "Hey, Arian's working." You know what I mean? So it's funny that when you say things like that, when you're missing maybe key events or festive moments, no one's really holding it against you because they understand that there's like this underlying drive or passion towards this thing. Whether for people, it doesn't have to be fighting. It could be, insert whatever it is that your passion is.
Yeah.
But for you, it is specifically combat sports. So it's interesting that the same grace that is bestowed upon you was also the same grace that was bestowed upon me as a fighter. So it's funny that you're saying these things, and I'm like, dude, I know exactly what you mean because like there were dinners I missed and there was parties I couldn't go to, and no one really batted an eye or held it against me. They're like, oh, well, Arian's cutting weight. He's 4 weeks out from a fight. He's not going to come to this party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think people know that
I think they can appreciate.
Yeah, they appreciate it.
Yeah,
They know we're
appreciate
doing
it.
something special.
Yes.
They know that we're doing something that's not what normally people will be able to do or participate in, right? It's not a dime a day. You know what I'm saying?
Do you
it's a rare
think-
it's a rare commodity.
Do you think the average person has a passion they pursue similar to what you're doing?
No,
I don't either.
I don't think so, man. I see a lot of people around me, and I don't think so.
Just kind of
I
floating
mean,
around.
luckily, like within my close friend group, I would say a lot of them
That doesn't
are.
shock me. That
A
doesn't
lot of
shock
them
me.
are, right? But if you just say you take that circle of mine and you go this way and you go through the different layers, the further I go out, the less I see of that. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I asked that question because I feel that as well. I would say the exact same thing, that if individuals around me didn't necessarily have, and it didn't have to be a driving force in the same way. It didn't have to be entrepreneurship, but like, if someone around me is like, let's say a teacher, and they're
Yeah.
not trying to be like, hey, I'm pushing for the school district to do this, and we're trying to get this getting done, and I'm pivotal in this new administration
Whatever.
rule,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is.
yeah, yeah.
I think I have an affinity, or I enjoy it when people around me are pursuing better.
Yes, I agree.
Better in anything.
Whatever
and
it
if
is.
people aren't, and I know some people, like I've lost friends that, from middle school, high school, college, I thought they were going to be around forever. And then after college,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can't make you not be done.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not.
But I'm gotta
And
go.
then
I'm
slowly
going this
but
way,
surely,
man. You know.
Exactly. And I can't stress this enough. It has nothing to do with wealth or direction in whatever task. It has everything to do with the underlying fire
That's correct.
within them.
Yes.
Because some people get content.
That's it.
And I sometimes,
Being
Junaid,
content is a drug. You know
well,
what
dude,
I'm saying?
I envy it.
Yeah.
I envy
I
it.
know what you mean. Yeah, I know.
Because like
what you mean.
sometimes I wish I could be.
Yeah. No, I think for people like me and you, I think what we're looking for is freedom. Okay? And what I mean by freedom, what does that mean? What I mean by freedom is that you have the ability to do what you want, that you're not worried about money. You're not worried about finances, right? And I think that when you have passion, you have all these things you want to do, but you got to go to your 9 to 5. Like you have to support your family. You can't just say, I'm not going to do this and we'll figure it out, right? But I think that that's what I see the most, right? Remember when you were maybe in high school, right? And you had your group of friends and it's Friday, you got $20 and you're like, man, this is going to be great, right?
Yeah.
You're like, we're going to go out, we're going to do this, we're going to go see a movie. And you'd have great time, like stress free, like not a worry in the world, no responsibility. And I think that when I look back at those moments as a child, right, and not everybody has that privilege, right? Some people have hard
lives.
living, but I had a pretty easy, comfortable living it. And when I look back at it, I'm like, why were we so happy? And I'm like, because we were free. We didn't have all this stuff we had to worry about, right? And unfortunately, in the society we live in, money is a big deal, right? That you have to kind of secure to support your living, your family. And a lot of times we have to give all of us just to accomplish that. There's no room for passion. There's no room to explore those things.
Because
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Survival that you're not
Yeah.
worried about. But let me ask you this
Yeah.
then, out of curiosity, because you are not. Okay, I want to be very careful how I say
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
because you are not an individual who is necessarily hurting for money, right?
Sure, yeah.
However, you still have this drive for more.
Yeah.
So, like, if freedom is the goal, duly noted.
Sure.
And it's not that I'm asking necessarily like how much can
Yeah,
then
yeah.
be generating freedom, but I guess my question for you is actually a more broader one. Let me ask you this: do you believe in retirement?
Yeah. So this is whenever you say, "Hey, are you going to retire?" Right? This would be my thinking of retirement now, and that could change, right?
Yeah.
But my thinking of retirement would be this: is that all right? We have our company, right? And let's say that I cut down, like from what I'm working now, I work 20% as much as I'm working now for that, right? So I go
So a
in,
fifth of the
I
time
go
you spend
in,
now.
you know what I'm saying? I go there and I'm still present, working some shifts, right? But I'm not, taking all the burden on my shoulders, right? I'm working fights as much as I can, right?
Because that's what you love to
because that's
do.
what I love to do, right? And some of the other things we're going to digest a little bit later in the
Yes.
podcast that deal with combat sports. What I would say is my retirement is working because I want to keep my skill as a physician. I don't want to lose that skill, right?
Of course.
But I'm saying I'm working it to the point where every day I go and I enjoy it because I don't do it as much, right? and I can spend a lot of time, and you know what I'm saying? Like it's a different vibe. And then the rest of the time, right, I'm doing charity work, which I'm really passionate about. Hopefully one day I can do that. And then dedicating time to combat sports, whether that makes a paycheck or not. That's what I would say retirement is for me.
I hate to go down this rabbit hole, but because you brought it up, I do want to ask, when you say charity work and that you feel passionate and like you like doing it, can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. Like what I mean by charity work is just giving back to the community in our country, around the world, right? And
Through being a physician or within other
so
means?
being a physician, maybe doing free, maybe going to a refugee camp, like that's something I was wanting to do. Go to a refugee camp and just be the doctor for free there, right? Help them out, right? Get with these organizations that go to these third world countries, right, where they don't have medical care and where there's a need there, and then just go for a couple weeks, right? It doesn't, you're not getting paid for it, but you're doing it because you're going to help somebody, right? And you're going to get that fulfillment. So I want to be able to do that, right? Or just charity work in general, right? I mean, there's all kinds of charity stuff across the world that you can get into, you know? For example, me and my father, we always have a passion to start a fund in our home. Like we're from like a village in India, right? Like a little village, right? So in that village, we want to eventually one day set up a fund where if anybody has medical expenses, like let's say you have a kid and he has to go and they don't have money for like a heart surgery, right? Well, we want to set up a fund that we can take care of that. Or if there's a kid who's a good kid and he's smart and he doesn't have the money to get education, well, we want to be able to fund education, right?
Yeah.
So then he can go become a doctor, right? Or whatever, an engineer or whatever it is. So we always have this passion that, like I'm not going to be somebody who is going to be traveling constantly to India or to like the village that my family's from, because I don't have that connection, right? I don't know many people there, and the only people who are left in back home in India are like my dad's cousins and their family. Everybody directly is here, but I still want to have some connection. Make sense? With that land.
Born here, or were you born?
Yeah,
in
I was born here, right?
Okay, so you were born.
So I was
in
born
America.
here, right? You know what I'm saying? And like
But obviously your father still has those roots.
So
there.
basically, my father, right? All his siblings and their family are here, and my mother, all her siblings and their family are here. So everybody who's directly related to me, everybody's here, right? So this is like some of my grandma's siblings on both sides. Some of them didn't come. You know what I'm trying to say? You get what I'm saying?
I have family still in Albania.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
So you know them, but you know they're not. You know.
I was born in Albania, but we left before I was even 1 year old.
Yeah.
We lived in Greece for like a couple of years to get our papers. So like I only remember America.
Yeah.
And the only reason I ask that is because even though I was born in Albania, like I always tell everybody I'm American Albanian, not Albanian American.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the country I
This is
know.
home. This is home.
However, I still have an affinity towards my
correct.
blood, and
Yeah, of
I know
course.
that I'm Albanian and these are my people, quote unquote. You know what I mean? So I understand what you're trying to say and what you're kind of elaborating.
And then my fear is that if there is no connection, right, it's gonna be gone, right?
What do you mean by that? If there's no connection, it's gonna be
what I
gone?
mean by if let's say that we set up a fund, a charity fund, right, and that is going to keep me engaged. I'm going to be going back at least once or twice a year, right, to see what's going on,
It'll
right?
maintain that relationship.
Just like Louisiana, right? If I didn't keep in contact with them, if I didn't say I'm going to come back and help fights, right, then how would I be working this fight last week, right? So I still want to have some connection, right? And I don't think that connection is going to come through friendship or something like that, right? Because you know what I'm trying to say? It's too distant.
It might, but
I think that having that connection where, hey, this is my roots, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget your roots, right? You know, your gene pool came from here, right? And make sure you're still giving back to those people, because hey, look, if I was still in India, I would not be a ringside doctor, right?
Brother, if I was in Albania,
I mean, I don't think so. We would not be having this podcast.
It's not an
you know?
insult. It's not an insult.
It's not an insult, but it is what
It's
it is.
the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the truth, and it's the beauty of America, right?
Yes.
Is that we had the privilege and the opportunity to come to this country, and it has been awesome. It has been positive. Like I said, I was
given me abundance.
Yeah, like I said, I was born here. I don't know anything else, but I have gone back, and I went back, and I was like, holy shit, bro.
Different world made you appreciate it here.
Let's get
a
out of
little
here.
bit
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
So
not in a bad way, but like, you would not say, "Oh, I'm gonna go back to India. I'm gonna live there." Right?
I actually,
like, no.
I know exactly what you feel. So
Yeah.
this is why I'm going to ask this question. So for me personally, I have a admiration for my people, for my land and all that, because that's
Yeah.
where my blood is.
Yeah.
However, if you were to ask me, like I said earlier, like I'm American Albanian.
Yeah.
But I'm curious for you, you know, do you have strong passions for being Indian? Like when you have conversations with people, like let me ask you this in a different way. Are you strong in the Indian community here in St. Louis? Are you a purveyor of, uplifting Indian Americans here in America?
Yeah.
Or is it just, this is my heritage, this is the color of my skin and some of my cultural norms, but I'm an American?
That's a great question. So this is what I will say, is that growing up as a young American with Indian heritage and a Muslim, right? I think that growing up, it was always trying to find your identity, kind of, right? Like, where do I fit in? What's this? What's that, right? You
Which all young people have.
All do, right? But I think with first generation immigrants, right? Your parents and your immediate family don't know the American experience,
No, they're
right?
very different
So
from
they
what you
don't
experienced
understand.
in
They don't
school.
understand. If you ever seen Hassan Minaj, like his first stand-up, right? Like basically he said a funny joke about his prom, which got scrutinized. But remember his prom story? He was saying like, he snuck out and like his parents were like, we didn't want you to go to prom because we thought you'd end up doing drugs and getting a girl pregnant because that's all we thought happens at prom, right?
Yeah.
So they don't understand some of these
Well,
things.
it does
right?
in their defense.
Yeah. but it does happen sometimes, right? That's what movies are
Where
made of.
there's smoke, there's fire.
But I think you get what I'm saying. So some of the things they won't understand, or some of the things that they find to be very important, right? In American culture, they may not be important, right? So I think there was that little bit of a flow, and during that time, it was more of a push to be more of American, I guess.
Assimilate more to the culture,
right?
yeah.
Okay, right. Then I went to college, right? And in college, right, we had at the St. Louis University, we had a great Indian Student Association. I was highly involved with them. I was on the executive board for the ISA, and then we had and all this stuff. So that was really about.
Was that something that you pushed yourself to do, or do you feel like you were kind of thrust in that position? Like when you went to college and you started working more with this Indian group, is it something that you felt passionate about?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel passionate about it. It was fun. And then for the first time, there was like 100, 200 other people who have been going through the same thing up till now, right? So
Look like you have similar stories to you.
Yes, right. But
My
before,
dad is like your dad.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Yeah. But before, maybe you have a smaller crew, but this was a larger scale, right? And I think during that period, we really discovered our Indian roots in the way that we wanted to, not from what was told to us, not what was expected from us, but in our own American way, we're able to discover that and understand that and express that, right?
Absolutely.
Then after that, what I've realized that it's not about this culture, it's not about that culture, okay? I think the blessing of being American Albanian or being American Indian or whatever, right, is that you can compare and contrast two different cultures and you can make your own and you pick the best from each.
Yes.
And I think that's a great positive because there's really positive things about Indian culture, right? Hard work, education, family values, right? Like if you say like in India there's a nursing home, they'd be like, what are you talking about nursing home, bro?
They're
There's
living
no
with
such
us.
thing
What
as
are
a
you talking
nursing
about?
home.
Same
man.
thing
We
in
take,
Albania.
We take care of our parents, right?
Yeah.
Right? Here they'd be like, there's like, go to the nursing home. What do you mean? They don't stay with us. I mean, that's just a different thing, right? But what I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're able to kind of look at, well, this is really good here that maybe is missing here, and this is way better in America than is over here, right? So I think that overall, right, you have that ability to form your own identity, to form your own culture, and why don't you take the best from both, right, and accelerate that to the success in your life and your family's life, right? So I think that's what I learned, right? It's not about this or not about that, right? It's about what works for you, right? And regardless, like where you come from or where your heritage is, right? That's gonna play a role in your life, some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Whether you accept it, whether you deny it, or whatever, but it's gonna be there. So you just have to educate yourself about it, right? And they say this thing like that edge that immigrants have, that people say, they say that within 3 generations it goes away.
I don't doubt it.
And I can see that, right? That over time, right, that edge or that will kind of get assimilated, right? And then it'll become more of a...
You're diluting the struggle.
Yeah, it'll kind of even out.
You didn't have the same struggle as your father, and your kids are not going to have the same struggle as you,
exactly.
who didn't have it as your father. And in a way, you're suffering from success.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the only way, and circling back to the foundation I'm talking about, the only way, right, that my kids and their kids are going to have that thing is if they see it.
Yes.
If they have a connection to it, right? And I think doing what I
But you're
said.
actively working to maintain that
That's
connection.
correct. That's correct. And I'm trying to do it in a realistic way, not in some fantasy thing like, oh, we're gonna go back and visit my third cousin. Like, you ain't gonna go back for that.
And even if
like,
you
it's like,
do, you're not
yeah.
connecting. You're there
You get
for
what
a
I'm
week
saying?
or two.
They'll be like, what are you doing? Like, you're not gonna be able to connect with, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can't have this conversation now because it has anything to do with intellect or anything like that. It's just that they don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? How
different
can
world.
how
It's a
can
different
you
world.
how can you talk about your experiences when you come from a completely different country or
It
different
is neither
setting?
good nor bad. It just is.
It is what
You
it
know
is,
I mean?
right? It is what it is.
It's funny to hear you articulate that way, and I've always known it and I've always felt it, but I've never said it. But you're absolutely correct. Even now, as a father, like there are things that I learned from like my Albanian heritage, and then there are things that I've assimilated and learned from American culture. And I pick and choose on the moment in the interactions, whatever it is that's going on. Is this a time to be a little bit more, so I was Greek Orthodox growing up, so a little bit more conservative.
Yeah.
Or
There
is
you
this
go.
time to be a little bit more socially liberal? Like,
Yeah.
do I give the grace or do I take it away? Am I more disciplined, or is this a time for me to kind of pull back because
Yeah.
the norms are changing?
Yeah.
But it is within me this, it is what I've learned from home and what I've learned from
Yeah.
school and my friends and the assimilation of, I'm 32 years old now, so like all I know is America, but for the first 18 years of my life, I lived at home with first 21 years of my
Yeah.
life, I lived at home with my parents. So it's like I'm constantly getting bathed in two waters.
That's
One
it. That's
is this
it.
American culture and one is this Albanian culture. And I like the way you said it was not one or either. It is, I'm going to pick and choose the best in that circumstance
That's
of
it.
what is needed right now. And that's why I think there is this connotation with these like first or second generation immigrants and, this drive or this work ethic or whatever. And I don't think it has anything to do with the dilution or like, a negligence or a deficiency in America.
Yeah, no.
I think it's that America is great. It is on its own great. But when you also factor into the equation, perhaps a separate entity within you that you can also siphon greatness from.
That's correct.
Then
There
you
you
don't
go,
have just
baby.
one. You're diversifying your
Yes.
portfolio of you.
That's correct, right? Exactly.
You have two folders.
Yeah,
You're pulling from.
you have a book that nobody else has.
Yes.
Right? And there's some secrets in that book that nobody else knows, right? So why don't you use them if it's gonna help you, right?
be wise
And
to.
I think, but at the same time, right? If you're like, hey, Dr. Munshi, we're gonna start a new country, right? And what are the rules and regulations? And I would say America, right? I would say that's gonna be your best way to succeed, for that country to succeed, right? So I will say that if you had to pick and choose, right, then that would be the one that I would choose.
America is the only country that allows for other countries to assimilate
That's it.
within and change it
That's correct, 100%.
for good
Yeah.
and bad.
Yeah, like I mean,
that's the
like,
beauty of
yeah,
it.
because when you go to India, there's no white people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Even-
it's
even
all,
if
it's
there
all
is-
Indian people, right?
Even
But-
if there is
yeah,
white
yeah,
people,
yeah,
even if there is white
yeah.
people, I guarantee you those white people aren't changing the cultural norms of that
Yeah,
area.
yeah. But in a-
those
yeah.
people have to assimilate 100% to
That's
the
correct.
norms of that
That's
area.
correct. And in America, right? There's everybody, right? Now there may be more of certain
Yeah, a little
types
bit
or
of both.
whatever, but if you go to the mall, you're gonna see every type of person.
I think maybe that's the disconnect towards like immigrant hate because, I'll be the first person to tell you that when I was growing up, there was like some, I want to be careful how I word this.
Sure.
There wasn't like, there was like negative energy towards us or whatever, but you felt like the Albanians, the Bosnians, the Balkan states essentially.
Yeah.
They definitely felt a little segregated from everybody else. Not to the point where I felt like I couldn't play with white people or black people or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was always this like, I'm sure you felt this.
No,
like,
no, I know
You're
what you're
not
saying.
Junaid, you're that Indian.
You're the Indian guy.
Exactly. So
No,
like
no,
for
no,
me,
I understand.
I wasn't Aryan, I was like the foreigner.
Yeah. No,
right?
no.
I
There
might be
is.
white, which I have
Yeah.
going for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not like white.
Yeah.
I'm olive, right?
You're off white.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, you're right. I make that joke to black people. I'm white, but to white people, I'm not white.
Like, well, he's almost white.
Exactly. But I guess the reason I bring that up is it goes back to that thing of like it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It was always something that I kind of had this feeling around me of difference.
It's like
yet
it's
same.
like you're not fully accepted or something. That's in your mind.
Yes.
In your mind.
Even
That's
if I
what- yeah.
am, I
in
don't
your,
feel
in your
I
mind. In your
am.
mind, you're like, well, I'm like 90% in. You know what I'm saying? I'm not 100% in, right?
I'm glad I had that though.
Yeah, because I think it kept me sharp.
Yes.
I think it kept me on my toes. I think it made me really vigilant of the room. And that has helped me a lot, right? It has helped me a lot to kind of be like, all right, like what are these guys thinking? What's going on in their head? Like what should I say? And like strategically have conversations.
You're navigating it,
right? Like, you know what I'm trying to say? So that has helped me because you will come across people who may be racist or bigoted or whatever, right? I mean, that's just a part of life, right? But that doesn't mean. But what I've learned is that I have had conversations with people who are racist, right, or who are bigoted, right?
Towards Indians or just in general?
Just in general, right?
Yeah.
They may be just toward maybe
you're not
Indians
me,
or Muslims
you're not loved,
or Jewish people or whoever, right? It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what you are, right? But some people just have a negative idea of that. But what I've noticed, right, is that once I've talked to these people like a normal human being, like a normal American would, and then they're like, "Oh, you're Muslim?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh." They're like, they don't understand, right? But then it clicks, and they're like, "Oh, hold on a second. Oh, I guess I have a wrong interpretation of this, right?" So I think as immigrants or people who are different, right? It's also our responsibility to educate these people, right? And the way that you educate people is through action, right? It's not through just talking. It's not through anything. It's just shaking their hand, and whether they agree with you or not, have a conversation with them, talk to them, and once they personally know somebody like that, then that's how you change people's minds.
There's one caveat in everything that you said. I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
However, I would add one thing. As long as you're also willing to assimilate to some of the cultural norms of where you're at.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the thing.
That's it.
Because if you're coming into a room
Yeah.
and you're navigating that room and you feel the temperature in that room and you said, I'm going to change this room, well, then get ready for some pushback. Because if there's 100 people in that room, maybe 50 people are with you. The other 49 won't. And then now you're going to be combative with them.
That's correct.
I have also felt exactly what you feel, where like perhaps someone has negative connotations towards me. Maybe they had like a bad interaction with an Albanian before, so they kind of carry that to like the broader sense. But given enough time, given enough experience or interaction with me, suddenly it's like, oh, you guys aren't as bad as you thought you were. It's like, hey, listen, man, just like, you can't judge black people by one black person or Indian people by one Indian person.
Exactly.
However, it will take someone who is... This is why I say
when they talk, they don't see a difference.
I don't have an accent.
Yeah,
and I take pride in that.
that makes it that does have a big role, right?
Well,
but if you have a conversation with somebody, and then in that conversation they kind of forget this physical appearance, right? And they connect with you, right? That's when people start.
I agree,
I think,
and I think the easier you can bridge that, the easier you can bridge that gap. So to the point of like racism and all this other stuff, or homophobia, or
whatever,
religious extremism, I do agree that it exists, but I would also make the connotation that it has been the most diluted it has ever been in human history today.
Yeah,
it's in the right trajectory. I don't care what anybody says, because when I was growing up, it wasn't cool to be racist.
Yeah, it wasn't.
If someone was racist in our group, we checked them. We're like, whoa, hold up, bro. What the fuck did you just say? That's not cool.
It wasn't
because we were all immigrants. We had black people, we had Asians, we had Albanians, we had Americans. It was everybody.
Yeah, and like I've always had and for me growing up, I've had best friends from all races, all religions, all everything, right? And that doesn't matter, man. It matters who you are inside, man. You know what I'm saying? And if you're judging somebody just because of something like that, I mean, you're the loser. You know what I'm saying?
That is a very American sentiment.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this country.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I kind of went down a rabbit hole.
But you're right. But you're right. You know what I'm saying? And I think those are the real losers, just because
I also think that it reminds me of like there are battles that need to be won or lost, and they need to be taken seriously. But this is a battle where I don't even feel like I have to fight. I know time will be on my side.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All it needs is time.
That's it. And it all sort itself out. You know
exactly.
What I'm saying? It will.
If you don't mind, I'd like to take a hard pivot, because the last time you were on this show, we discussed a little bit about your history, a little bit about like the path that you took to, get into the world of medicine, and ultimately how you got to this point today. And I kind of alluded to this earlier in the conversation when I talked about the lunch that we had. But the last conversation that we had, you were telling me that you were actively working on a paper to be published.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So can we just for a brief moment, for those that may have not watched the first episode, can you just briefly go over what that means, like a paper to be published?
Yeah. Okay, so as you guys have heard, like I am an active member of the ARP. I'm on the executive board.
What is the ARP again?
The Association of Ringside Physicians. So basically, it's a medical group for ringside physicians who are practicing ringside medicine. in the United States and worldwide, right? So we're like that medical group, just like the orthopedics have one, sports medicine people have one, every specialty has one. That's kind of what we have. So we put out position statements. So a position statement is our position or our expert recommendation on certain topics, right? So for example, we have one on concussions, we have one on younger fighter, we have one on older fighters, we have one on eye conditions, yada yada yada, right? So I have been fortunate to be the lead author on a position statement that we've been researching for 2 years, and the position statement we're going to put out is high risk combat sport athletes. So what that means is that we are trying to identify some characteristics that we can say that, hey, this MMA fighter or this boxer or this guy who does jiu-jitsu or whatever in combat sports would be considered high risk. So what we have done is we've had about 12, 13 doctors working on this for the past 2 years. It's been a long journey, to say the least. We've reviewed about 4,500 articles. We did a lit search at Johns Hopkins University, multiple drafts, a lot of discussions, a lot of debate, but finally the end is near. It's up for a board vote. There's a little tweaks we're making, but overall, the recommendations that we're going to make are pretty much solid and will soon be approved and published on our website, okay, the ARP website, and then also we will be attempting to get it published in there's a combat sports medicine journal, so we are working towards getting it officially published in that journal also. So that would be going out to a broad audience that deal with combat sports.
Can I ask two ignorant questions?
Sure.
The first one is, when you say that we're going to take it to a vote on the board, is that vote to what, like affirm the findings?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so right now, right now pretty much the overall high risk conditions, nobody has a problem with those, right? There's stuff in the paper, right? I'm trying to say that we may want to tweak some things.
Forgive me, I'm going to take another step back because and this is a problem that I think most people have in their own industries, because like you're used to being surrounded by people that know this.
Yeah,
sure. So like, let me take a step back because I'm ignorant to this. Like, okay, so you say like, I'm going to be the lead author of this paper. So like you're essentially, in order to form a paper, what you're doing is you're taking in a lot of data.
Yes.
From other physicians, from other hospitals, and are you basically just aggregating common stories? Can you just briefly speak about how you got to the point where you're even going to a vote?
Yeah. So basically, this was a couple conferences ago, is when we wanted, as a consensus of the organization, that we wanted to have a position statement on this topic. Okay.
About high risk
combat sport athletes.
And
when
we say high risk, we mean what? Concussion, damage, like
mortality.
Okay. Even more.
I think mortality is kind of what we're saying, right?
People who should not be fighting.
So I actually gave a lecture at that conference on this topic. So they're like, yo, you got to do this. Because you already started the process, right? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it, right? So with that being said, all right, we got another one of my good partners and good friend, George Velasco. He's another guy he's basically like co-author, right? So I grabbed him and like, yo, listen, let's do this, right? So we got about 12, 13 guys together. We broke them up into different groups. Like one was going to study the concussion part of it or the neurological part of it. Others were researching the amateurs. Others were researching professionals. Others were researching, what I'm saying? So we broke it down into different groups, and so they can kind of streamline their
divide and conquer the
information. Divide and conquer, right? So then once we got all of that information back, right, then we were digesting and saying, all right, so these are the things we're finding, right? But what are some of the things which are a home run, right? There's no maybe not. We don't want to say
this is too consistent.
We don't want to say something that's like iffy. We want to say something that's like, this is for sure, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
but how hard is that considering?
It's really hard. It's hard
because it's like everybody's different.
It's hard.
Everybody has different thresholds.
But let me do this. Let me tell you those things that we come up. And I think that will help. You guys understand, right? Okay. So the first criteria that we have is age. So what we're saying is that anybody younger than 13, okay, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, right?
Should not be fighting.
Well, I mean, whether they're fighting or not, well, we're saying that if they are fighting, right, If you're under 13, it's probably high risk, right? So if there's a kid who's 5 years old, 8 years old, sparring, I mean, their brain is not fully developed. There's a lot of things, right?
Do you mind if when we're doing this, can I straw man some arguments?
Yeah,
just
yeah,
to hear
sure.
you? Okay,
Yeah, sure.
so let me
Yeah.
give you one
Yeah.
on this specifically.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people do amateur kickboxing and Muay Thai and MMA and boxing for kids around fifth, fourth, third grade.
Yeah.
And the argument usually made for allowing it is that because the kids are not fully developed, they're not generating enough force to truly do enough damage, so
Yeah.
that you could really judge the I don't want to be rude, but like I don't want to call it a fight because it's kids, but the sport activity
Yeah.
on its technique and not necessarily on its physicality. So like, what would you say to those that say like, oh, come on, Junaid, like little kids can't even generate enough force to knock each other out. How could there be damage?
Well, I would say that it's all relative because, like, they're the same size, right? So the force that is impacting them is just as significant as somebody a different size. That's why they have weight classes, right? You get what I'm trying to say? So even though they can't generate enough force, that doesn't mean they can absorb as much force either.
That's fair.
Right? So it's about absorbing, and it happens with that force, not the amount of force, right?
And based on
Does
our
that make sense what I'm saying?
No, it does. And based on our previous conversation,
Like remember that? What is it? Whatever. Every action has a reaction. You know what I'm saying,
but
right?
also, one of the things that you said in our previous conversation that like alarmed me and it really stuck with me was that the highest propensity weight class for brain damage
yeah.
was 125ers.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it wasn't the heavyweight. So it wasn't
Exactly.
necessarily correlation to knockouts.
You know what?
It was the correlation to
Yeah.
the amount of
And
damage.
you know
you're
what?
taking.
You said this, bro. And it was the heavier fighters have stronger neck
Well,
strength.
they got bigger backs and
Exactly.
stronger
So they
necks.
can take the impact.
They can take
bro.
the impact.
And the younger kid is not, right? So anyway.
Well, also, the other difference too is, in my opinion, this is just anecdotal.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is correct.
Yeah.
But from my observation, because heavyweights are less volume, more power, if you are making that contact, it usually has a higher propensity for ending the fight.
Yeah.
Where the lighter weight classes, 25ers, 35ers, 45ers, they can crack you.
Yeah.
They could do everything right, load up that combination, hit you with the one you don't see, but because they're smaller and because you're athletic, you're in shape, you have all these things, you might be able to recover slightly faster because just the sheer amount of force that impacted you was less.
That's correct.
Whereas the heavyweights might get put
Done.
away with that.
You're out.
And that's actually why I say that sports like football are more damaging than sports like MMA, but I think boxing is actually the more dangerous one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because of the impact, but it's the successive impacts.
Yeah, it's
If I get knocked out, the guy
You're done.
covers me and I'm
Whatever,
done.
you're done, yeah.
But in boxing, I
Yeah.
get the standing 8 count.
Yep.
Or I could drop,
Yeah.
and then as long as I can get my bearings about
Yeah.
me, the fight can continue.
And that's what I've seen with the research I've done, right? Is that it looks like, right, more concussions in a shorter period of time, right, over your career is worse than, let's say you had 3, 4 huge knockouts and like it was all like, oh my God, and it was a highlight
were, like,
reel.
2 years
but it was like
apart.
3, 4 years apart. It happened a couple times, but other than that, you never really got rocked, right? That
You're
looks
fine.
less worrisome than somebody who every fight is, doing
Getting
one of these,
wobbled.
but not maybe getting knocked out. But every fight, he's like gets clipped. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I'm seeing.
Can I piggyback off that,
Yeah,
actually?
yeah.
One of the things that I've also noticed, this is all anecdotal evidence, and
Yeah.
forgive me, we're going to get back to the paper.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But one of the other things I've noticed is there's usually a correlation to the wobbliness of a fighter.
Yeah.
So, like, if they've had fights where they've been rocked,
Yeah.
and you kind of see them doing the chicken dance or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Give them 2 or 3 fights like that, and suddenly, instead of getting rocked, they get put out.
Yeah.
Their ability to maintain that same impact is just it gets diminished.
Yeah. So there's been some debate on that, whether like the more you get hit, the weaker your chin gets or not. There's not a lot of hard evidence. And I've always said, like, whether it's that or whether it's that people are not targeting that, I don't know, right? But yes, I absolutely.
And by the way, this is just my input. This is by no means your
Yeah,
findings. This
sure.
is just
Yeah, but that is something
gym bro
that is
talking.
something that has been brought up, and I do think that we need to look into that to see. Look, if you keep getting clipped, if you keep getting hit, and you keep getting knocked out, does that mean now your chance of getting knocked out is more? And does it take less force now for you to get knocked out or not? There's really not any hard evidence that I've seen that says yes or no, but that is a common question that comes up.
agreed.
But I do think some more research is needed. But
So
anyway,
sorry,
yeah,
we were
but
saying
anyway,
anyone under the age of 13.
anyone under 13 and
high risk.
over the age of 35, okay?
Really?
Yeah. So
Really?
yeah. So the reason
Can
why
I ask you one
yeah,
question?
yeah.
Is this for MMA, boxing?
This is anything. This is
all
this is
combat sports.
The reason 35, okay, all right, is because there's a bunch of reasons, but these are just me talking, right?
Yeah.
Is that your ability to recover? Okay, somebody did a research on recovery, right? And it was like 18, 21, da 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 da. You hit 35 and it just and it does this, right? So you can't cut weight as good. You just can't. Like, you cannot be cutting weight the same. Your time to recover from injuries is more. You know what I'm trying to say? Your body
Brother,
cannot handle what you did before.
No one's gonna debate this.
That's what I'm
I'll
saying,
tell you
right?
right
You
now.
know what I mean?
When I was 28,
Yeah.
when I was 21, so not even 35.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. I'm 32 now.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine going back to fighting.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
No.
Fuck
It's hard,
that.
bro.
Especially at the highest level. Fuck that.
It's hard, man. Yeah. And I always, in my opinion, if somebody says, "Hey, Dr. Munshi, when should I retire?" I'll be like, "All right, man, look, you're going to make most of your, let's say you're making the UFC or blah, 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 right? I'm like, you're going to make most of your money from 25 to 35, right?
I actually don't agree with that.
Okay, all right.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because it depends on your career.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Right? So like if you I know some guys, Dr. Munshi, that like at the local scene went through some battles.
Went to hell, man.
You know what I mean? And they might be like 25,
Yeah.
but then I know some guys that are 32, 33 that have never really had the
That's
tough
fair enough.
fights.
And I think that's one thing I said the last time is your ring age.
Yes.
So how much accumulative damage have you taken throughout your career?
Do you take that into consideration when you say like, after 35?
So I would say that if you get injured after 35, it's gonna be worse than if you got injured at 25, right?
Agreed.
So I think your ability to recover, your ability to come back from injury, and all those type of things is just not. It's just your body is not going to be as durable.
I don't think
now,
anyone would
that
fight
doesn't
you
mean
on
I'm
that.
painting we're taking one brush and we're stroking. This is just over
But the
generalization.
exception also does not make the rule.
Yeah. But like Manny Pacquiao just thought he looked great, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying that's one Manny Pacquiao,
Until
right?
he doesn't.
But
Until he doesn't.
most people are not Manny Pacquiao, right?
Yeah,
And most
agreed.
people are not Mayweather, and most people are not these people. We're talking about the average person. You get what I'm saying? But I think that's a pretty that's not a very like crazy recommendation.
Neither
I don't
one
think
of these anyone would
I don't
fight
think
on.
anybody's going to argue that much about it. And we're not saying
I think you would get more pushback at the 35 than you would the 13.
Yeah, I think so
Truthfully.
too. I think so too. And this doesn't mean you can't fight after 35. We're just
If you're
saying that
higher risk.
if you're higher risk, bro, if you're over 35, I mean, there's nothing. It is what it
Sorry,
is.
brother.
You're higher risk for a cardiac disease. You're higher risk for cancer. You're higher everything, right? So why wouldn't it be the same if you're in combat sports than any other health condition? I mean, it just it makes sense.
By the way, I'm just strawmanning arguments for the sake
No,
of
but
conversation.
you get what I'm saying.
I don't
No,
disagree
yeah,
with anything
right?
you're saying.
All right, the next one is 3 consecutive losses, particularly by KO or TKO. So if you got knocked out 3 times in a row, I mean that's a pretty straightforward thing.
Do you consider in that time frame?
So we haven't put in a time frame, but we're just saying in a row. So 3.
Isn't that a variable though? 'Cause
Yeah,
we were just talking about
that's true.
earlier
That's
how
true.
like if let's say I lose by knockout and then I
Yeah.
wait like a year
Yeah.
to get back in there. And if you're a high level athlete,
Yeah.
like we often say this about guys that got into the UFC and then got cut. Good luck finding fights
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the local scene
No,
because
no.
you're a UFC vet.
I agree.
Everybody's a killer.
Yeah, I guess what we're trying to say is that if you fight 3 times in a row and you get knocked out every time you fight,
Not looking good.
not looking good,
Not
right?
looking
Maybe
good.
1 year, 6 months, but you got knocked out every time you fight. You're like, well, he's probably getting knocked
Actually,
out.
I would make the
He might
argument
get
that
hurt, man.
it's worse if it's over the course of time.
Do you get what I'm trying to say,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And but for amateurs, we said that if it doesn't have to be a KO or TKO because if the ref usually stops it before they get knocked
Yeah.
out, right? So that's what we're saying. Basically,
Can I add some caveat to that,
Yeah,
or like
sure.
some additional?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
reason Junaid is saying, or Dr. Munshi is saying that, is because the referees are more inclined to stop fights
Yes.
for amateurs earlier because they're not being paid.
Yeah,
Some of
they're
these
not.
are hobbyists. They're
Yeah.
not necessarily pursuing combat sports like a professional
Yeah,
athlete would.
yeah.
So it's like you are not going to allow them as the referee to take and sustain
Yes.
the same amount of damage that you would
exactly,
with a pro.
exactly. So
That's what you're saying.
basically, you fought 3 times in a row and you got knocked out every time, and so that's that doesn't mean you can't fight, right? But
you're
that
higher
means you're probably
risk.
going to be higher risk the next time, right? Okay. Inactivity exceeding 1 year.
I agree
I
with
know we
that.
talked about that. I mean, yeah, the longer you've been out of the ring, obviously it's going to be a little bit more risk, right? No prior wins. So you're 0-5.
I don't even know if that's higher risk or someone that shouldn't be fighting at
Fair
all.
enough, right?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
If they're getting
I
knocked
agree.
out,
I
like
agree.
legitimately knocked
But,
out, I
yeah,
agree with you.
yeah.
But how many fighters have you seen, and I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be rude,
Yeah.
but how many fighters have you seen like the journeyman losers?
I know.
They're
I
going
know.
in there,
But-
the first punch they take, they crumble, and they
Fair
take
enough.
the TKO.
Exactly. And I think what we're trying to say is like that doesn't mean they can't fight, right? But if you're 0-5, 0-6, right, your chance of getting hurt is probably going to be more than somebody who's 5-0. You know what I'm
agree.
saying? I mean, I think
agree.
it is what it is, right? You know what I'm saying? The next one is significant mismatches in record, experience, age, or physical conditioning. So a mismatch, right? So if you're a 5-0 guy fighting an 0-5 guy, well, obviously that can be high risk for that individual. Not because they can't box or they can't fight, but the competition or who they're going up against may be at a different level, and obviously you can get hurt that way, right?
Absolutely.
The next one is previous history of concussion. So if you've had a concussion, you've had a traumatic brain injury, if you've had one, it hasn't. Whether you've had one, if it hasn't recovered, or you've had some other neurological injury, right? So any injury to your brain that we know for sure you had has been diagnosed and we know about it, then obviously that could be a factor that make you higher risk.
I hate to bring this up by name, but I don't know if you're familiar with the fighter Corey Beck, but he's
Corey Beck, really familiar.
125er from ESMMA. He actually just made a retirement post, I want to say like 2 weeks ago. And one of the main things that he said in his post was essentially like, hey, one of the main catalysts for my retirement is not where my career is going. It's not how I feel, or sorry, not like physically how I feel. I'm still capable. I'm still all these things. He was talking about how like I'm starting to notice that these concussions are adding up.
Yeah, exactly, right?
And he's my age. Like, so he's 32, 31. So it's like, to your point about, I want to be careful how I say this, but you know, the ability to recover, the successive losses in success of one another. It's funny how an individual like Corey Beck is kind of, through his retirement post,
he's kind of saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this
saying
over time."
You're saying,
and I think that's what
and he could still fight,
and that's what Dustin was saying. Dustin Poirier was saying, he's like, "Not good for my brain." Like, I mean, yeah, I can still. He's like, "Yeah, I can still fight, but
dude, I
got some things, and I got some other things. My daughter, my family, which are more important to me than fighting now. So I don't want to risk it." You know what I'm trying to say? And I think that's what that's saying, right? And it makes sense, right? I mean, if you've had
nothing
that, obviously,
you've said is a
it's
shock
not
to me.
It's not going to be helpful. Like, you know what I'm saying, right? The other one is that pre-bout hypertension. Remember we had talked about that? So if your systolic blood pressure is above 160, or if your diastolic is above 100, right? And that's high blood pressure, okay? That's not even like borderline high. That's like super high.
That's also at when you take it, which is like usually weigh-ins, right?
Yeah, and like I said, and this doesn't have to be the first time you take it. Like, you can take it throughout the day, the next day, or whatever. But if your blood pressure is sustaining like that, you know what I'm saying, then you have underlying hypertension.
Out of curiosity, did you ever do any sort of research with possible like fighters with diabetes?
We have, yes. There has
inadvertently.
So yes, there has been, and I think the one thing that you have to be careful about is people with diabetes is if they're on insulin, because whenever you are doing extraneous exercise, your need for insulin will decrease by like 20-25% because you burn it, right? So let's say somebody has a fight, and let's say they take 20 units of insulin at nighttime, right? And they had a fight, and you don't tell them they take 20 units, they can go hypoglycemic at night. So I think that is something with the medications could affect you. Does that make sense?
Chris
your blood sugar.
Chris Craig, he's a fighter that I worked with, and I train with, and he's a good friend of mine. He's actually hypoglycemic, and he's the one fighter I know that like goes to the state athletic commission, goes to the doctor, and says, "Hey, I have this orange juice."
Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
because usually, for those that don't know, when you're in the back, you can only drink water. You can't bring anything else for the fighters.
Yeah.
He's the one fighter I know that has like an exemption, specifically for his hypoglycemia.
For that reason, you got to keep.
Because he needs the sugar because he doesn't produce enough.
Exactly. Right? And then the last thing is, this is just kind of a broad thing, any medical condition that basically can compromise your defensive abilities. Okay, so like, you have a broken hand, or you know what I'm saying, I can't see out of this eye, like, you know what I mean, like common sense things.
To that point, there was that one fighter in PFL, I forget his name, I'm so sorry.
One arm, bro, right?
Yes.
Yes. I think
but the state was sanctioning.
I think some commissions will not allow that, right? But some will, right? You know what I'm saying?
And I hate to say it that way because I know the guy wants to compete and all that, but I think to myself, bro, if you put one arm behind me, I'm
and I'm sure, and I'm sure some of these guys are really good and they can compete, right? But it's all good until somebody gets hurt, right?
Yeah.
And so I think
the problem, right? Is like, I'm with you. Like, when the story's good, like, if the gentleman comes out there and he wins the fight, everyone gets the warm fuzzies.
Everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
But if he goes out there and gets starched, now we all feel like we're an accomplice to like a negative act. Like, oh, we should have never let him out there.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I think overall, right, these were the things that we all agreed. We're like, listen, most people are going to agree with this. Even people who are not doctors, if you talk to fighters or coaches or promoters or anybody, right? I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with these, right? Yeah, that's where we wanted to start, right? And I think that the beauty of this is that this will evolve, it'll change, there'll be stuff added, subtracted, or whatever over time. But I think now we have a base, right, to kind of go forward. I think some of the things that we need more research on is weight cutting, right? We need somebody to do a position statement just on weight cutting, and when they complete that finding needs to go on this, right? There has to be something, right? You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is, right?
I think if there's any one variable
Yeah.
to the adverse effects that an individual can incur during a fight, there is no one variable more important than weight cutting.
Exactly. And we
Specifically
did
rehydration.
Yeah, and we didn't want to preemptively do anything,
No,
right?
that's a
so
tough.
We
that's
were
a,
like,
that's an
this
onion.
needs a project, a 2-year
Yeah.
project on its own.
Because you have different weight classes, you have different body
it's-
types.
This needs just amount of focus that we did on this, just on that topic. But whenever that is done, I think that's the next big one that we need to add to this, right?
You know what my worry is about your findings?
What?
If I'm going to be honest
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
sure.
My worry for your findings is the scrutiny for the lighter weight classes will only become stronger.
Yeah, but I think for now we haven't made that. We have not made that really a high risk thing, right? Because that's another one, right, where there is data indicating that, and there was one study that did that, but that you have to really digest.
How many
right?
heavyweights went to the hospital for a weight cut?
No, I know.
Versus how
I know.
many
I agree.
bantamweights or flyweights?
I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, because of what you're saying.
By the way,
right?
I was a
Yeah.
bantamweight, so
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if there's anyone that can tell.
I think what I'm saying is that because of my love for combat sports and dedicating,
you want to be very careful.
we're not gonna say anything unless it's like for sure, right? And these are the things right now that we can all say for sure. And I think
I don't
everybody will
disagree
agree.
with
I don't think
anything.
everybody will agree with it, right?
Yeah.
Now there are some things, right? The weight classes, right? There's some stuff that says women have more concussions than men, but then there's
shit.
some people that say, well, women tell us about the symptoms more than men, so that's why, right? So that's something to look into. I don't know, right? You know
How
what I'm
do you
saying?
factor that into the equation?
It's hard, right? It's
Yeah.
hard, right? It's hard whether they're telling us about it. That's why we know more, or whether it actually happened. Like, how do you're gonna have to figure that out, right? But you get what I'm saying? There are things that people say, right? And or maybe even if you do, like I said, if there's 100 women who were fighting and 100 men who had fighting, I guarantee you, the women are gonna be more upfront about what happened than the men. I mean, they would. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think they're more upfront about some of their symptoms they're having, right? So that doesn't mean women are more susceptible to concussions. I mean, they just
They just have to be more honest.
They were more honest about it, right? So you really have to go deep into those things, and you have to do these things called like double-blind studies, and you got to like do all this stuff, right, to try to get that bias out of it, and then see where the data lies.
So to that end, and it's not as if I'm trying to, poke holes in the study, as much as I'm trying to understand the logic in which you guys arrived to your conclusions. So let me present to you this argument. It was earlier stated that women are a little bit more honest about some of the repercussions that they feel from combat sports.
Yes.
When you're compiling these papers and you're taking in all this data, how do you take into account the human element?
Yeah. That's a very difficult thing to do, right? And there are all kind of different, in medical school, we're taught of all these biases, right? For example, if we want a product, right, that we want to come to market, right, we're probably going to be more biased to say it's safe.
Yeah.
And we'll probably not look at something that just subconsciously, right? Or the type of questions you ask, right? And all these things, right? So the thing about that is that you have to look at a broad spectrum of data, and that's what we did, right? And you have to have a very concise, conclusive, consensus that there's agreement on specific things. If you identify that there is potentially a significant bias, right, in that finding, then I would be, in my opinion, you got to throw it out. You get what I'm saying? Now, when it comes,
the data is faulty.
yeah, it doesn't. That's what it shows, right? Like if you go to, I don't know, like these polls, like when politics going,
yeah.
like every time I've seen a poll, right, and like the day before they're like it's so close, and then like the election happens, you're like not even close at all, right? Well, if you go ask the people outside of of the Republican place or the Democratic place, well, obviously the poll is going to be skewed depending on where you go, right?
Not just that,
Yeah.
but there's a certain type of person. I don't know about you, but whenever I would get those phone calls, by the way, I'm an independent, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Same
actually
here.
the kind of
Yeah.
person that you want to call and get their
Yeah.
information because then
But-
I'm the kind of data you
Yeah.
want. But like the second I get a call and they're like, we're with Gallup, and
Yeah.
shut the fuck up.
But it's like if you want to do a poll, be like, who thinks Junaid is cool, I can give you a list of people to call, right? You know what I'm trying to say?
If you're looking for a designated outcome.
You know what I'm saying? So that doesn't mean that that's true, right? So, like, for example, for the women thing, right? You know, there has been some people and some data that says that women are more susceptible to concussions than men, okay? Well, when we're looking at it, when I'm looking, I'm like, okay, all right, the data says this, fine. Okay, cool, right? But once again, right, I know from my personal experience as a doctor, whenever I'm talking to a patient, in my experience, right, and it's just me, and I'm sure other doctors will agree, women tend to be a little bit more honest and open about what's going on than men. Like, and I'm sure you would agree, right? Like, no, I'm good. Like, even after a fight, for example, right? You know what I'm saying? But
Can
also,
I presented a separate argument.
Yeah.
What is the heaviest weight class for women in MMA?
I don't even know.
145.
145.
Right.
So then it goes back. Exactly.
Then it goes back to the weight classes.
Exactly.
I don't
So
necessarily
is it
think
the sex or is it the weight class?
I think it's a combination. I think both things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that women can be more honest with the repercussions that they find from combat sports, while simultaneously the
Lower
the
weight class,
Venn
yeah.
diagram of data can still be overlapped on the genders. Like if by the same virtue, 125 men, 135-pound men, and 145-pound men take on more damage because the propensity for fight-ending shots
Yes.
is lower.
Yes.
Well, then why wouldn't that be the same
Exactly.
for women?
Exactly.
It makes
right.
sense to me.
Exactly. So now
You would need to get like 200-pound women
Yeah.
to fight to
That's what I'm
kind
saying.
of skew that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So that's why we were not ready to make that statement because we're
Yeah.
like, there's a bunch of factors here, right? Just because this study said that doesn't mean that
There's
that's,
enough holes that you
there's
can
so many
poke.
holes, right? What is it because they're saying it more? Is it because of their lighter weight class? Is it because their neck is less strength, right? Is it actually sex or is it all these other factors, right?
Yeah.
And it may be that weight is the actual factor. It doesn't matter about sex. Maybe it's just the weight.
Women cut weight much harder than men.
You know what I'm saying? So there's all these other different things, right? So the thing is
And it's
that
key to point out that in this paper, what you just discussed was only the findings
Yes.
that you thought were like the easy
Yes.
concrete, like
We
very
do-
little
yes,
debate.
We do talk about the other things in the paper, but that's not like our conclusion
you're starting
recommendation. this is a discussion, right?
Fair.
And the things in the discussion, right? They could change over time. They could be adapted or whatever, right? But what we went through previously are what we're like, all right, man, this we can say, right? And all the other stuff, we can talk about it. We can keep researching it. We can keep looking into it, right? And we may well find other things. But right now, this is what we can all agree on. This is something that all the physicians agree on. This is things that most of the MMA and boxing world and combat sports world are going to agree on. And now at least we have some objective information. And what I want to do now is take it a step further, and we talked about this last time, is develop like a calculator online, right? So let's say any fighter can go on, right? And there'll be some questions, right? And they pop in their information, and then it'll say, whether you are high risk or not, right? So at least there's some tool, like for fighters themselves, right? There's going to be times where people are deciding whether they should continue or not, right? And if there's a tool that can help them in that decision, right, that would be great, right? If there is a fight that maybe the commission is like, I don't know, man, like if we should do this. I don't think we should do this. Now at least maybe they have some tool that can back them up, right? Or
it's not an
you know what I'm saying?
anecdotal feel.
Yeah.
It's more a little bit more concrete. Like, hey, based on some of the things that we're seeing, based on the findings that we have, we are now structured in our opinion. It's not vibes.
Yeah, it's not just my opinion. It's not just because I'm the boss and
because
I
then
make
you can
decisions.
poke holes in that too. Like, oh,
Exactly.
this state athletic commission is biased and this, that, or the other.
And like I said,
And fighters will want to push the envelope as much as they can.
And none of these recommendations are a hard stop that you can't fight or that you shouldn't fight or whatever, right? These are just saying, hey, look, this guy might be high risk and you should maybe look at this a little bit. And
it's just
that's
truth.
It. Yeah, it's just truth. Nothing is unreasonable in what we did, and that was the purpose, right? Our purpose is never do we want to have any recommendations that makes the sport less competitive, right?
Here's a hot take. I don't know if you'd agree with it or not.
Yeah.
I don't believe that anyone under the age of 21 should be in MMA or boxing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
And I think that headgear is actually worse than no headgear.
Yeah, I would agree about the headgear, right? I don't think that. I think headgear is good for like tournaments and stuff because so you don't get cut and stuff like that.
Not even then.
Yeah.
Because I think it creates. I've had 2 boxing matches, amateur actually 5 technically, 5 technical amateur boxing matches, and I can tell you this right now, Junaid. I was hit more in those 5 boxing matches than all of my amateur and pro MMA fights combined because the size of my head was
Way
made
bigger.
double,
Yeah.
and this the field of view of my vision was halved.
Yeah, I agree. And then the other thing is that we talked about this last time is people feel like they have protection and they take more chances.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, I got a helmet on or I got this headgear so I can take the hit, right? So they'll maybe put themselves in harm's way when they wouldn't if they didn't have that, right?
I would agree with your with what you were said about like lacerations. Like yes,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
virtue of like having headgear, it would probably result in less cuts. But what I would say is the cuts are minuscule compared to. I never worried about a single cut, but I was worried exclusively about the damage I could not see.
Yeah, that's correct. Because you're obviously your vision's going to be obscured to some point, right?
There was one fight that I had, one amateur boxing match. I think I said this in the previous podcast. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself.
It's okay.
It was the only time in my 12-year career in combat sports where the next day, the
remember that,
blinds had to be closed.
Yeah.
I hit him maybe 250 times. He hit me 240 times.
Yeah.
I won a split decision in a very close fight, but like it could have either gone either way.
Absolutely.
Both of us were game. Both of us were just fucking throwing, and both of us were hitting a lot. And the very next day was the only time ever in my career where I was like, I need to be in a dark room. I definitely had, I don't know if it was one or multiple concussions.
You had a concussion. Now, whether it was, you had a concussion. I think
Yeah,
you can
for
say that,
sure.
right? That's a clear sign.
The light gave me a migraine.
And like I said, and I think that is, like I said, that was the one thing that it doesn't protect against concussions for sure.
No.
It does not.
It
do
made it
that.
worse.
But people think that. You know what I'm saying?
And here's the thing is like, I will like, there are a few things where I will kind of draw a line in the sand. I say two things and I will go to bat for this. Number one, weight cutting is the single greatest detriment to a fighter's health, even above the impact that they will suffer from a fight. Yeah. And number two is that headgear is actually worse for people.
Yeah. So I don't know if I can say that I don't think I can conclusively say the headgear is worse for people, but I don't think it's better for people.
I can't conclusively say it either.
Yeah.
I'm exclusively speaking
but I get
from
what you're
my
saying.
anecdotal
But I get what you're
evidence.
saying.
I can tell you from football that when people have the helmet on, they
Hit harder
Yeah,
and spear
exactly.
and it builds bad
And
habits.
I think we talked.
You have less injuries in rugby than you do football.
Yeah,
for that
exactly.
reason, 'cause people use the
Exactly.
helmet as a weapon.
Yeah, because they're not going to go in rugby head first into the guy's head. I mean, they're not going to.
No,
do
they're going
that,
to break their own
yeah.
collarbone. They're going to
all
do this,
that-
that, or
and
the
all-
other.
and all that
Much
stuff.
more grappling, much
Yeah.
more grabbing.
Absolutely, right? So it is what it is, you know, and I think that's the one thing is that there's a lot of, you know, people's ideas or their conclusions, right? And what we've been told, right? But you know, what we're doing, what the ARP is doing, and what these physicians who are ringside physicians who are in research are doing is like, yo, you need to make sure that this is correct, okay? Just because they said this doesn't mean that it's correct, and just because they didn't say this doesn't mean it's not correct, right?
Can I ask you one more thing? And this
Yeah.
will be the cap that we put on this part of the
Yeah.
conversation because there's still more things I want to
Sure,
talk about.
absolutely.
Have you ever taken any thought into also, in one respect, I have an immense amount of admiration for what it is that you're doing because what your work is to protect the savages of our society.
Sure.
When I was a fighter, if you would have asked me like how much input I had or how much thought I put into survivability, my longevity, I used to say like, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm going in there and, you know, outside of the one fight that I was stopped, which was stopped by the ref, I'm not tapping.
Yeah.
And unless you put me away, I'm going to keep fighting.
Yeah.
You are in a field and you are, you know, doing research on individuals that I genuinely believe are kind of like a little bit fucked up. And that I'm putting myself in that basket, right? So like, I'm not trying to be rude.
Sure.
Do you ever think to yourself, like, not what is the point, but like, what is the designated outcome? Because even if you find conclusive evidence, even if you publish this paper, I'm telling you right now, you could take this paper, you go to St. Charles on the May with all these guys that are fighting. Good luck telling a guy over the age of 35 that like, oh, you're high risk. He'll tell you to go fuck yourself.
That's fine. Just
So
no problem.
I guess my thing is, in the grand scheme of things, what is the goal of the work that you guys are doing?
Yeah.
Is it in order to work in conjunction with the state athletic commissions? Yeah. Is it to just create consensus so that it's no longer anecdotal Jim Bro evidence and a little bit more concrete in terms of, you know, the medical field? What is the designated outcome of the work that you guys are doing?
I think the main goal is education.
Okay.
is to educate people, right? Now, what you do with that education, that's on you, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to tell the state athletic commission how to do their job. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, right? But what I am here to do is tell you, look, man, this is what I think, and this
You're
is
over
what
the
we
age of
found.
35.
I mean, this is what we found, right? Now, if you want to listen to me, cool. If you don't want to listen to me, I'm still going to do your physical, clear you, and be your ringside doc, right? But you at least need to know the facts. I think
God
that's
bless.
I think that's the main thing.
God
It's
bless.
like we're not here to dictate or tell you how to live your life or what you should do or what you shouldn't do, right? But when you go to the doctor, he's going to tell you have high blood pressure, right? He's going to tell you have high cholesterol. He's going to tell you need a colonoscopy, right? Right? You don't go there to tell everything is fine when it's not fine,
Does
right?
it ever frustrate you as an individual if because forgive me, but this is like your
Yeah.
life's
Yeah.
work. You, from birth till now, outside of those formative years, like your life has been around medicine and the physical aptitude of the
Yeah.
body and
Yeah.
and you specialized in this field.
Sure.
On a personal level, does it ever frustrate you if you give out information that is concrete, or perhaps you've been working on this for the last 2 years?
Yeah.
And some people might look at this work and be like, "Fuck you, dude. I'm going to do whatever I want."
No.
Is there any part of you that frustrates you?
No, because I've told people stuff they should do that I didn't do. You know what I'm saying? Like, with just general medicine, right? So no, it doesn't frustrate me at all, right? Because humans are human, right? And I've seen somebody who smokes a pack of cigarettes every day, drinks a 12-pack of beer every night, and he's 95 years old and nothing's wrong with him.
Crushing it.
And then I've seen a kid who's 8 years old who has cancer, and you're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't make sense. So what I'm saying is that we give guidelines, right? We give what the research shows, right? And sometimes the research changes, and what we thought one time is different another time, right? So I'm not that type of doctor who's like, what I'm telling you is the word of God. What I'm telling you is what we know right now and what we think we know, and I'm just trying to help you, right? And I want you to live a healthier life and live a nice life and a long life and not suffer. And this is how I think that it can happen. And as much of you can do it, great. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm also the type of doctor that's like, well, you need to have enjoyment in life and be happy too, right? If you do everything, all this stuff people are saying, and you're miserable and you hate your life and you don't enjoy anything, like, what's the point? So it's trying to find that balance about living a nice, healthy life, but still enjoying your time on this earth, right? It's not about, I'm going to live to 110 years old, but then the last 20 years I'm in a bed. Like, what the hell is that, right? So I think it's finding that balance. And I think with combat sports, right, it's about educating people about, hey, look, this is what we think, right? And look, here it is, right? And take a look at it and you make your decision, right? I'm not here to say that you should do this or you shouldn't do that, but this is from what we've researched. That's what it looks like, right? And as a matchmaker, as a promoter, as the commission, as the physician, right? Like we've talked about before, right? I've worked up over 120 fights so far. Okay, I don't even know. It's over 120, maybe 130 by now, right?
God bless.
Okay, so a lot of times I'll look at people or I'll do their physical and I'll be like, you know what I'm saying? I'll know, right? But let's say there's a brand new doc, right? And a brand new doc in like Alaska, okay, right? They can't find a doc and they get this doc to come work, right? He's never worked a fight in his life. Well, what is he gonna use?
He has no nuance.
You don't know. Like, we got to give them something, right? So I think that's the goal. The goal is education.
So it's not even necessarily for the fighters as a guideline for them, but more as a
Physician
uniform
too. Yeah.
physician tool.
Physician, commission.
I didn't even think about
promoters, matchmakers, everybody, right? Like, I'm sure there's times, right? I'm sure there's times where a matchmaker or promoter or anybody, right, is like, I don't know if we should do this fight. I'm sure it goes in their mind. You know, I'm trying to say that is, we don't care about. They have a heart. They care about their fighters. They care about what happens to them. They do. I know they do. You know, I've talked to them. I see them, right? So I'm sure sometimes in their mind they're saying that, right? So at least this gives everybody some type of tool to say, yeah, actually, you know what, my gut is correct. Maybe we shouldn't do this, right? Or maybe we should match him up with this other guy, right? Because look, there's not a mismatch. They have a similar record. They both got knocked out. Maybe this is probably a better fight. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think that's what it is. It's about keeping the sport competitive, right? And making it safer, right? Or as safe as
You're
possible.
trying to make a very violent act as safe as possible.
Yeah.
Which is such a tough
It's
job
tough,
to do.
right? It's tough. And yeah, people are going to have some criticism both ways. One side of it is that we shouldn't be talking about this or we shouldn't be supporting this. The other side, like you said, might be like, well, I'm 35, I don't have high risk, or I'm not a high risk for this or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, right, it's better to have people who are passionate about the sport, who are dedicating their time to the sport, figuring things out, like without bias or limited bias, right? And at least saying, hey, man, look, I'm on your side, man. You know, like, I'm coming to the fight Saturday. I'm going to enjoy it just as much as you. And look, man, this is what we found.
That's actually why I like the fact that you're kind of spearheading this work, because I've had enough conversations with you up until now, especially some of the things that you've said on the record, some of the things that you've said off the record. My synopsis of you as an individual is, hey, I'm not trying to stop the show. I'm
No,
not trying to stop
not
the
at all.
party. However, what I am trying to do is I want to make sure that everybody in that room understands what this is.
Exactly. And I think, what is really important is when to stop.
Yes.
I think that's really important, right? And like a lot of people have said, I want to Dustin. I know I keep going with Dustin because I've just been
No,
watching
he's
his interviews
anecdotal.
last week, right? But remember, he said, I want to retire from the sport. I don't want the sport to retire
Retire
me,
me.
right?
So
and
wise.
that happens a lot, right? Is that people keep going when they shouldn't go, and you know what I'm saying?
I think that's a direct correlation to opportunities, and I think Dustin has made a lot of money.
Sure.
And this is the other side of this, and the other side of this is there's a lot of people that have no other option other than
I agree.
combat sports.
I agree.
And this is where that rub begins to
Yeah.
happen of like everything that you're saying, at least what we discussed today, I don't think the average person will disagree with. But then the problem becomes you're mixing two things. Scarcity. These fighters aren't fighting because they have abundance.
Of course, yeah.
Or perhaps they do have, because not Ilya Taporia, sorry, but there is Armin Sarukian comes from wealth, and he's in the top 5 in the UFC, which then begs the question of like, okay, well, if it's not scarcity that brings you, it's because he's a fucking animal.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you the first thing I'm doing if I got $1 million in the bank, not getting punched in the fucking face.
Yeah, probably not, right?
So like Armin gets a lot of like this, that, or the other. It's the same thing. I'm going to say the same thing about Armin that I said about Conor McGregor. The reason I respect Conor McGregor so much, even though all the bullshit, is because that boy made $1 million and then came back to fight Khabib.
Yeah. He came back.
If I had $1 million in the bank, I'm not fighting Khabib.
Yeah.
Dude. If I had $1 million, not 100 million.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
So the reason I bring that up is there are so many variables to this, and the reason I enjoy talking to you so much is you are a doctor, yes, but then like you're also like a fan, and you're also educated. So like a lot of the conversations we've had, you've kind of said the things that I was thinking. You're like, well, this is what we should do, but this is what they're gonna want to do. So this is what we're gonna do.
Exactly.
And I love that.
That's
and I
exactly.
love that because it's
Exactly.
theory, it's application. You create
What's in
practicality.
reality? What we're gonna do?
Well, practicality.
There you go.
Practicality.
Yeah.
It's like, what should we do?
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
all you can do is say it. But
That's
at
it.
least you said it.
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to say, man. That's the whole purpose of this paper is just to put some things that everybody's been saying. You know what I'm saying? This guy has said it. This commission has said it. You know, this doctor has
Now
said
we
it.
have data that
now
backs it
we
up.
actually said, okay, everybody's been saying this. That's great. Let's actually dig into the data. Let's back this up, right? And let's at least come up with something that we have a basis now that we can move forward. And as the years progress, I'm sure there will be things that get added.
I was
things
going
that
to
get
ask you.
adjusted.
So my last question on this, and I
Yeah.
would actually like to, after this, move on to
Yeah.
the final topic. But
Sure.
on this topic, so, this is going to a vote. Let's say all the right things happen.
Sure.
So it goes to a vote, it gets passed,
Yeah.
and it gets put in this journal and all these
Yeah.
other things. Does the work stop, or do you build on this afterwards?
We're going to build on it. Like I said, the next step is to develop that calculator, right? That at least just any person can go type in their information, answer some questions, and at least have some answer. Okay, that's going to be that. And I think the next thing is at the conference. We have our next conference in September in Vegas. So I think that definitely is going to be a push to try to get. We have already been talking about it. Is try to get a position statement out on weight cutting, and I think that's one thing that we need to add.
I think that's gonna be an onion.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's going to take 1 or 2 years just to figure that out, right?
Easily.
And it's like to say that you shouldn't weight cut. I mean, you could say that, but to say that that's going to happen is unrealistic. Okay, so now it's like, all right, well, at what point do we have to say you can't go past this, or not even say that you shouldn't? Not to say that you can go past this, but what point are we saying that now it's dangerous?
I think as long as this is just me.
Yeah.
I think as long as if you keep it to educating people,
Yeah.
no one can ever look at the person trying to teach a man how to fish
Yeah.
and talk ill of him
Yeah.
until, especially after COVID, until they try to force you.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
And that's why I like what you're doing, because you're not trying to force.
No, not at all.
It goes back
man.
to the thing that I said. You are trying to facilitate the party.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I get it. Everyone wants to bang. Like, let's fucking do it. But let's also take into consideration some of the circumstances, some of the, negative reactions that can come from this, and let us just be aware of them.
That's it, man.
So at the
Yeah.
very least,
Yeah.
this grown adult who's doing this action of his own accord and
100%.
signing on the dotted line, like
Yeah.
I did,
Yeah.
at least we know what we're getting into.
Exactly. That's all. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? And that's why my goal or thing has never been, oh, I need to change the rules or I need to. No, I don't care, man. Like that's not up to me, man. That's up to the government. That's up to whatever they want to do. You know what I'm trying to say? I could care less.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this, because
Yeah.
out of curiosity,
Yeah.
this is something that I've wrestled with myself. Hypothetically speaking, actually, I want to be careful how I ask this, Junaid, forgive me.
No, that's cool.
Okay, so you are an individual who enjoys and are a fan of combat sports. That is
Yes.
that is one
Absolutely.
pillar of
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
But you're also a physician who understands the nuance of like the medical field and the repercussions of these actions. At what point do you feel, and this is the last question I'll ask on this, at what point do you feel like you need to step in?
Yeah.
What is that threshold
Well,
to where
yeah.
you're like, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
but you are leaving me no options?
Well, I think luckily, okay, I'm never put in that position in the state of Missouri
Yet.
because of our commission, and I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think that's going to happen here. Okay, like so, I don't.
God bless Tim.
I don't think that I will ever be in a position where I feel that way because of how good our commission is. And just to be quite frank, okay, Tim could be the commissioner in Vegas, in Nevada, in New York. He could easily be the guy in a big state where big fights happen every weekend. Luckily, we're blessed that he's from Missouri and we have him, right? So his knowledge and what he does, right? I've never once ever felt like, oh my God, what are we doing, right? Now, I cannot say the same for my colleagues in other states, okay? So I fortunately, and I don't think that's ever going to happen here, just to be honest with you, right?
God bless.
Now, if there was a situation where that has happened, we've talked about this. Like, what do you do, right? And I think at that point, right, the best thing to do is just be like, I can't be the doc for this event.
You don't want to back it then.
Yeah, exactly, right? That doesn't mean that we're gonna huff and puff and make a big deal and yell at everybody.
don't
and-
wanna put your
But it's
stamp
like,
of
all right, you
approval.
guys can do this. That's cool. But hey, man, I'll get you at the next one. And I think that, unfortunately, that's probably the best way to go because you don't want to do something where now, let's say that I'm qualified and I'm the best guy for the job. You don't want to do something now now you're completely out of everything because that's not good for you guys. That's not good for the state. That's not good for the sport, right? But if there's something that you feel morally or ethically wrong, right? Then it's probably better just to, take a back seat on that one.
Let me once again take the straw man in this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
If you felt so strong that fight should not have happened, that you want to recuse yourself
Yeah.
of that specific night, not necessarily the
Yeah.
promotion,
Yeah.
but that one individual event, why wouldn't you then say to the promotion that you shouldn't have this fight?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Like,
but
I
I guess what I'm saying is that's not my job. That's the commission's job to say that.
God bless.
We gotta say because the commission figures out what to do, right? And then, right, they have the fight. But I know for sure, right, with the respect that I have for Tim, if there was something like that, and if I went to Tim, he's gonna listen to me. I'm not saying he's gonna not have the fight or whatever, but I know he's gonna hear me out, right? But I've never once ever been in that position, and I thank our commission. And like we take it for granted how good our commission is, man.
I agree.
We do. And why do you think the UFC has come back to Missouri 3 years in a row? It's not because we make the most money, okay? It's because we have a good turnout. We do make good money, but at the end of the day, it's smooth sailing, right? Everything is organized. Everything's in order. Everything's ready to rock and roll. There's no problems. Everything runs smooth.
In your experience, has Missouri been like a pretty good, like the State Athletic Commission? And this is kind of a weird question because obviously, like, the bias is not without precedent, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
obviously, people might listen to this and be like, well, of course he's going to say this because Tim and all that.
Yeah.
But I will ask it anyway, like, because you've worked for other state athletic commissions, not just Louisiana, not
Yeah.
just Missouri, but others.
Yeah.
Where would you stack Missouri, just out of curiosity?
I would say it's a top 10.
Really?
Without a doubt, and probably top 5 without a doubt, because the thing about it is that other commissions, there's a lot of layers to them. Okay, so let's say you have to make a decision, you might have to get the approval of 4 people.
That's Ridiculous.
right? And in Missouri, it's one guy. And if you have the right guy making the decisions, then it's always run smooth,
Good
right?
executive.
Exactly, right? But if you have 4 guys or 5 guys or whatever, right? Then there may be difference of opinion. Then there may be politics now involved.
No,
Like
it's
there may be a
bureaucracy.
bunch of stuff involved now that may be dictating that decision. That maybe is helpful, maybe it's not helpful, right? So I think over here things are streamlined. You know what I'm saying? And I think that our commission is like a well-oiled machine. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows their role. Everybody's happy with their role. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Everybody knows what they're not supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? And when it's fight night, there's not confusion or there's not anything. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and it's like clockwork. You know what I'm trying to say? And we have a great guy who leads the whole thing. So I think that goes a long way.
You know, I am a little bit ignorant because I've only ever fought in Missouri. I never fought any other state.
Yeah.
So all I've ever known is our state athletic commission.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is people don't know.
Maybe I'm a little, spoiled.
Yeah, we are spoiled. I can tell you that for a fact. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean that other commissions are bad or they're good
No,
or
it just
whatever.
means Missouri's really good.
But I would say that we're a well-oiled machine, and things are running. And look how great it is now with this new system, right? You go online, you fill out your paperwork, you print it out, you bring it to the.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wish it would have existed.
It's
when
amazing,
I fought,
right? I mean,
put it that way.
it's becoming more streamlined and more efficient. So that's what I would say. It's very efficient, the system that we have here, right? It's the same guys working all the time, right? Everybody knows one another, right? And that's the great thing is that, like, I know most of the fighters in St. Louis, right? They know most of the judges. They know, I mean, not the judges, but the referees, right?
It's a small group.
And everybody knows each other, and everybody trusts each other. Everybody respects each other. Does that make sense? There's not a lot of like, who's this or what is this guy doing? Or
I actually have, to that point.
Yeah.
This is not a reflection of you in any which way. There is one state athletic person.
Yeah.
That works for the commission that I cannot. I loathe.
Yeah.
I loathe.
Yeah.
Motherfucker type status. I'm never gonna say his name on the record.
Yeah, fair enough.
After this conversation, I'll tell you.
But anyway, but you know what I'm saying. But for the most part, right? But for the most part, with my experience, right, it's been really good. You know what I'm saying. And everybody's treating me with respect. I always try to treat everybody with respect. And the fighters also, I think, for the from overall
for the
experience,
most
has been
part,
good.
but the problem is
You may have one guy here or there, but
amateurs. Pros
Yes.
usually get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Amateurs, and that's
And they're still trying to figure it out,
That's
right?
That's the title, right? They're an amateur.
they're still trying to figure it out.
Here's the one thing I will say, and then we'll move on, is that whenever I had Tim Lukanoff here, this is one of the things that I did not know, but I will always reiterate. He has been the head of our state athletic commission for 33 years.
Yeah,
And I am 32 years old.
that's what I'm saying, man. You
So
know what I mean?
he has been doing this for longer than I have been alive.
That's what I'm saying. And
God
bless.
bless.
He knows what he's doing.
Came into
right?
office in
I mean,
1991.
hopefully he doesn't retire for a long time, but it's a
I
big
think-
shoes to fill.
You know what's funny? He's been talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's God bless whoever takes that position.
Yeah.
Because talk about like some
Yeah.
big shoes to fill.
Yeah. It's some big shoes to fill. Man.
Yeah. And
It's-
I don't know. Can I be honest with you? I have no idea who it's going to be.
I don't know.
Because like I know that he's got a lot of guys that are like around him that kind of shadow him and stuff like that. But even to also be the head is like you got to go live in Jefferson City because that's where you're doing the majority of your work,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, do you live there? Are you willing to relocate there? Are
Yeah.
you willing? And by the way, God bless Tim because for the last 33 years, say goodbye to weekends. If it's on an MMA event, it's a boxing event. If it's on a boxing event, it's a wrestling event.
Yeah.
If it's on a wrestling event, it's okay. You get
Something, you know?
that 1 week in 52 weeks. You get it home.
No, I know.
So
I know.
God bless his wife and his kids.
Yeah.
Because
I bet
goddamn
his
is that a
wife, she's
sacrifice.
a lovely lady. She's super nice.
Well, she has to be
Yeah.
to accept that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
To that point, we've discussed a lot about a myriad of topics in this conversation. A lot of it has been a Venn diagram between yourself and myself, where we have similarities, where we have differences. And that's kind of why I really enjoy having you in office because it's like, dude, it's one of the rare times where I have a guest where I can just kind of shut up and listen. You had a lunch with me, and I kind of preluded this at the start of the episode, but I also want to talk about this now, where you are working on some things. So I feel like you wear many hats, which is one of the things I actually love about you. It's like you are, passionate about this, you work in this, but then you're also entrepreneurially minded, and you're spearheading technology that could, and I'm not trying to be like obtuse or, grand when I say this,
Sure.
but could very well change the way we monitor, prescribe, educate and ultimately, serve people that have CTE.
Yeah, absolutely.
The lunch that we had was you essentially bringing me up to speed on where you guys were. So I want to cater this part of the conversation with, at first and foremost, what is it that you are working on right now? What entity is it and why?
Absolutely. So we have just over the past 1 year, myself and my partner Imran Faruqi. Okay, we have a medical startup company. The name of it is Cortical Solutions. This medical startup is focused on brain health. Okay, just to give you a little bit of background, me and Dr. Faruqi have been friends for like 20 years. We met in med school. And we were always a little bit over here when everybody was over here. Does that make sense? So we kind of clicked off pretty good. And we've always been good friends. And we'd always be sitting there on those late nights talking about what we're going to do. We always had these big ideas. We always wanted to live life to the fullest. And we always had big dreams. And we would always talk, right? About we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to buy this and we're going to travel the world and all these things, right? And we've been friends and we've kept in contact. We kind of went our own paths, right? So by training, as you know, I am a family medicine physician, and I right now primarily am the lead physician and partner in Impact Physician Group, right, who focuses on post-acute care, a lot of traumatic brain injury, a lot of people who've had strokes, a lot of people who've had embolisms, a lot of people who've been in accidents, stuff like that, right? He went a different route, and he's an interventional neurologist. What that means is, in layman's terms, is kind of a brain surgeon. So he goes into the brain vasculature, he opens up clots, opens up strokes, and he's the guy that your whole left side is numb. You see him, and now it's not numb anymore. Okay.
You showed me a picture of a blood clot that he took out of someone's brain.
Yeah.
And it was one of the wildest things I've ever seen in my life.
So he did some crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? And he was always like that hands-on techie, like, that was like his thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
he's a
OR.
specialist.
Like he had that mind, like an engineer, like a mechanic. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody.
But for the biology of the human body.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he had that run. So we always, and then I'm over here about traumatic brain injury, concussions, ringside. So as you can see, brain health is a theme, right? I see it and deal with it on a daily basis, whether it's in the hospital dealing with somebody who's had the procedure he did and what happens afterwards, or somebody who didn't get that procedure, right? Concussion, CT, all that stuff. And he's the guy that goes in and is trying to acutely fix it. So he called me one day, you know what I'm saying? Like we always talk, right? But one day he called me, he's like, yo, Junaid, bro, I got this thing, I got this idea, And he starts talking, I'm like, bro, you got something, man. We got to do something. You got something, right? So anyway, we started spinning the wheels, right?
Out of curiosity, how long ago was that?
It's about a year, maybe
A year ago?
Yeah.
Oh, damn,
it
y'all
went
got
fast,
moving.
bro. Things went real fast, right?
God
So
bless.
like pretty much, I would say like after I think the last podcast we did, this is less than a year. I think our podcast we did was 10 months ago. It was
Roughly.
after that. It was after that. Okay, so
Okay,
less than a
no
year.
shit.
So he called me and I'm like ding 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 in my head. That's what's happening, right? And I'm like, no, bro, you have something. I'm like, don't tell anybody this shit. I was like, don't tell anybody else, right?
As he says on a podcast about to tell everybody.
No, but you know what I'm saying? I'm like, don't tell nobody shit, bro. Like,
This is 10 months ago.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, we have something. You have something. Like, and I'm like, what can I do to help? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, long story short, he's the founder, CEO. I'm the chief strategic officer. So I kind of, spearhead where we should go, what we should do, who we should talk to, how we're going to get this to market. Long story short, it was a theory at that point, and we hired a couple engineers. We hired a patent attorney.
Forgive me for interrupting.
yeah.
Can you discuss the preliminary theory?
Yeah, the theory is that we have developed a device that can go inside your brain into the vascular system and get data that is revolutionized this whole field, okay? The way I can describe it is like Twister. Everybody's seen Twister and Dorothy, you go in front of the tornado, they put Dorothy and all these sensors go everywhere, and now they're like, oh my God, we just learned, like, in 5 minutes we have more information than we ever did. And that's what we think we're going to be able to do.
With regards to, if I may extrapolate slightly, right now, with the medical advances that we have, the only real way, and correct me if I'm wrong on anything, I'm just trying to articulate what we've discussed before. The only real way to really measure the effects of CTE
Perfect. This is a good thing. Yeah.
is unfortunately post-life
Yes.
or after death.
Exactly.
Because then you can actually, when the individual is deceased, you can actually go into the brain
Exactly.
and see the trauma scars,
That's
the
correct.
tissue
That's
in the
correct.
cranium specifically,
correct.
right? But you guys are developing a tool that could possibly be used, and the reason I say possibly is because you might extrapolate more.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could possibly be used to perhaps get some of these medical data points or intricacies while the person is still alive.
That's correct.
Therefore,
That is correct, man.
treatable.
That's
so
correct.
some applications theoretically could be, I'm 35 years old, I've been fighting for 12 years, and I think I have CTE, but I'd like to know for sure.
That's correct.
Or the 70-year-old who maybe played football in high school and maybe never knew that he had CTE, but now he's starting to get some
That's correct.
negative effects, and
You
is
got
like,
it, buddy.
well, is this like a hormonal imbalance? Is this age degrading myself, or is this physical impact to my brain from my youth?
That's correct.
And I think the application from that theory is then once we understand what it is that we are working with, we can then better diagnose it.
That's correct. You got it, man. So initially, this technology and this device, right? Initially, we were focused on stroke, embolism, neurological issues, right? Which is definitely
Universal.
It's universal, right? And it's going to change the game. Okay. We're already patent pending. We already got a provisional patent on it. Okay. So we're in the development
The
phase.
Shark Tank in me is like,
Yeah. So the development phase has started. So we're hopefully going to have an actual device here built here in the next few months, and then the fun is going to begin. Okay. But we've already gotten a provisional patent on this. Okay. Now then, my brain started thinking. Right. I'm like, hold on a second. If we do this, we're gonna get so much information. What can we find out? And then we started to think, and I'm like, listen, right now, like you said, we are diagnosing CTE at the micro level. What that means is some guy that he had CTE, he dies, he donates his brain to science, they cut it up, they look under the microscope, and they're like, yep, he has CTE. We're trying to take it from the micro level to the macro level. We are right now in the research phase of trying to figure out, there has to be some thing that happens in your vascular system after you have a concussion, or if you have CTE, or you have brain damage, or whatever you want to call it, right? There has to be something that happens in your vascular system. And we're going to use this device, right, to identify those things and try to do it at the macro level in real time. That's the goal with what we're trying to do.
Can I take a step back?
Yeah.
You are very poignant and passionate about your statement when you say there has to be something in the vascular system.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate for an individual like myself?
Okay.
Who I don't know anything about
When you
this?
go to the doctor, you're like, oh, my stomach hurts. What is it? Go get blood work. right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So a lot of things that happen in your body, eventually something goes into your blood. Okay. Or when you have a heart attack, you can tell when they do a cath that there's something wrong with your arteries in your heart, right? So what we're saying is that when you have brain damage, or when you have concussions, or you have CTE, there has to be something that you can measure in your vascular system, okay? They've already have developed some point of care testing, okay, about doing blood tests, okay? So let's say you have a fight, right? They do a blood test, and they're like, oh, yeah, it looks like this protein is high, so you should get imaging. So there are companies who are developing these tests, which are very preliminary, right? So what we're saying is that just like you're like, oh, I got chest pain, doc, right? And they're like, we're taking you to the cath lab, right? So they go in and they look and like, oh shit, this shit's blocked, right? We're gonna put a stent in, or you need a bypass surgery. So what we're saying is that we're trying to develop that for CTE.
Jesus.
Okay, and we already got a device, right? Like I said, we already patent pending. We already have a provisional patent, right? And this is gonna, like Dorothy, like I'm just saying that because it's easy for people to understand. Is right now you're going in and you have like a black and white image, and then you're trying to make a decision. But what we're saying is, I can't talk about everything, but obviously,
or you have
yeah.
no image.
Yeah. So I can't talk about everything, right? But what I'm saying is that we're gonna have way more data that's gonna be flooding in if this goes to market, and we get our goal, which I think we're going to do, right? Everyone is saying that, yes, you have something. So if we get to that point, right, then my job and my department in the company is now to develop research on what the hell we need to look for, right? This is not going to happen tomorrow. This is not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in 2 years. It's going to take a long time, right? But once we can get in, once we can collect data, then the different sensors, we can change them, right? We can be like, all right, well, maybe we need to measure this, or maybe we need to put this, or maybe we need to do that, right? So I think for now, that is the combat sports part of it. And the great thing about it is that me and him together, it makes sense. We're the right two people for this, right? Because like I said, I'm the guy who sees this in real life, right? I see people who may have CTE. I see people with traumatic brain injury. I see people who have concussions, right? And he goes in and he knows what he knows what the vascular looks like. He knows what to do. He knows what. So together, right, we have a very unique take on this topic, right? It's yin and yang, right? And it started as an idea, we transformed that into an actual company. We've applied, like I said, for the patent, right? And we're developing what we need to right now. And with this being said, all of these light bulbs are going off rapidly. You know what I'm saying? And I think we got something, right? Now, and I think maybe I don't figure it out, but I think that if we keep going down the path that we are, I think somebody is going to figure it out eventually, whether it's me, whether it's the next guy or somebody. But I think this may open up the floodgates in that whole realm.
Can I ask you what the floodgates in that whole realm is? Like, not necessarily the anecdotal micro, but like, what is the goal of, okay, I have two questions.
Yeah.
Let me ask the first one and the second one. The first one is, clearly there is a passion behind this. There is a symbiotic relationship between you and your partner, but you are attacking a need. Can you isolate what that need is?
Yeah. The need is figuring out when we're in there, what do we need to measure?
Specifically in the brain.
Yeah. All right. Do you understand?
And right now, that's not possible.
Right now, it's not possible. Okay, they have blood tests. Like you can
outside
take your blood
of
test.
the deceased.
Well, you can't go in your brain,
Yes.
blood vessel in your brain, and be like, "This is what we need to measure. This is what we need to look for."
And you guys are developing
a device that can measure what we need to measure.
what are at the high levels, what are the applications for such a device? Like, what are the designated outcomes?
The great thing about this device is that you can use it in everyday medicine right now, right? It's going to
So not just like CTE.
No. Like just for if you have a
Alzheimer's.
stroke, or if you have a stroke, or if you have an embolism, right? What they're doing now, it's going to make that system better. It's going to make it more efficient. It's going to make it more successful. It's going to decrease time in the OR. It's going to increase success rates. It's going to decrease negative things that can happen. Okay? So that is where this is going to be applied in the broad sense. Once we are using this and we're in there, the amount of data we're going to get is going to be exponentially more than what we're getting now, right? And on this side, we need to figure out, okay, what do we need to look for? What do we need to look for, right? Make sense? People have already started to research, and there are some ideas on what you need to look for, right? So we need to continue to expand that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Let's say that everything you're saying is 100% spot on.
Sure.
And you develop a product that can go into the brain while someone is still alive and diagnose either some sort of traumatic injury, some sort of degradation of the brain due to age, what have you,
Whatever.
genetic
Yeah,
malfunction, whatever.
I think it's more like risk stratified.
Are there?
Is the right
But let me
term.
ask you this.
Yeah.
Okay, so like we're discussing the application of diagnosing an individual in real time prior to their death.
That's
which
correct. That is correct.
That's awesome. But then the next step with that would be like to remedy or to provide a therapeutic to this. So
Yes.
like my question for you is, if let's say all the variables pan out and that
Yeah.
you guys do develop this and the patent and everything in the business and you guys are, rolling in the money
Yeah.
and immense success and you have the product, what is the outcome of this data? What is the outcome of all of the work that you guys put into this product?
This is the big picture.
Okay,
Phase two.
yes.
Phase 2 of the project. Okay. Right. So we have the phase 1 is on going right now. We already have talked about phase 2. Phase 2 is right now. We're under research and development of an in-fight telemonitoring system. Okay. So this is a whole package what we're trying to develop. So let's say right now, and this is nothing new. There's people who are doing this, right? So, with different sensors and different things, right? What we're trying to do right now is like, let's say you have a fight. We're trying to objectively get information that tells us that you were hit X amount of times and you sustained X amount of force during this fight. Okay, so we're trying to get
With sensors in the gloves of the
It could
combatants.
be gloves, the mouth guard. We're trying to figure out.
Ooh, I
We're
didn't
trying
think
to
about the mouth
we're
guard.
trying to figure out where is going to be the best spots. Okay,
Why not all of them?
Yeah, exactly, and it may be a multifaceted system.
Yeah,
right?
because it's like if I work in data analytics.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the same thing that everybody
Yeah.
will tell you in my field.
Yeah.
More data that you have.
Exactly.
If I have 50 columns by 100,000 rows.
Yeah.
And I only need 25, great.
Exactly.
At least I have that
So
25.
let's say, for example, we develop this thing, right? You know what I'm saying? And I've already been a medical advisor for a Bluetooth wireless ICU monitoring system. So I know how to I know how to do this already. I know how to transfer that data. So let's say I'm a doctor and I'm sitting in ringside, right? And I'm like, holy crap, that dude got rocked. And I look at the thing, I'm like, no, actually it wasn't. Okay, or the vice
Based on the
versa.
numbers?
Yeah, or vice versa. It may look like he got rocked with a shot, but then you look at the force, I'm like, oh, it missed. It didn't look. Actually,
He's rolling with
actually,
it.
he rolled with it, but it looked like he got hit. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you like, let's say at the end of the fight, you're like, you have an objective information, like he got hit X amount of times, and the total force was this many, blah blah blah, right? Okay. Now let's take that. Now let's say you are a prospect fighter, and let's say you fight a southpaw for the first time, right? After that fight, let's say they were like, yo, holy shit, bro, you got hit 30% more time, and the total amount of force you took was 50% more than all your other fights against an orthodox fighter. Well, how is that helpful for you, right? Well, maybe you probably shouldn't just fight the southpaw again next time. You probably need to go work on this a little bit, right?
I don't think that at all. You want to know where I think your application really is?
What?
It's not on fight night.
Yeah.
Do you remember the conversation we had last time?
Yeah.
Where did I suffer the most
That's what I'm
amount
saying,
of
but that's what I'm getting at.
miles?
It's that training.
Yes.
So exactly.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying is that
If you put sensors in
Yes.
everybody's mouthpieces
Yes.
and also their gloves,
Yeah.
and after a hard spar day
You know,
that
exactly.
you're doing every
Boom.
Sunday, Saturday,
There you go.
in every
You
gym
got it.
across this world,
You got it, man. You got it.
that's where the real value is.
There
Not
you
fight
go.
night,
But
it's
I
Monday
think-
through
but
Friday.
you get what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. And so if we develop this, right, it is working, right? And we're doing this for the
Not
fighters.
just you, football players,
Everybody,
hockey
anybody,
players.
any contact sport. Now, if we're able to provide this, and I want to make it very clear, the objective of this is to provide athletes with this information.
Data.
That is it. We are not trying to do anything else than that. We are trying to develop this system so you have this information. You can use it in training. You can adapt your training, and you can use it throughout your career. Okay?
Or your physician could use it to diagnose you.
Exactly.
Or
Now,
after you're
here we go.
diagnosed,
Here we go.
to provide a
So
therapeutic.
let's say we have this system, right? And from this system, we figure out that look, there was these 10 guys who got CTE, and out of these 10 guys, they all developed this much force of damage throughout their career. So that means that once they're at this level, they need to go do our test to make sure that they don't got CTE. So we're trying to develop this entire system where we're actually monitoring. And it's not even just monitoring from a medical standpoint. It's actually good from a practical standpoint for a fighter to help them understand what they need to work on, what they don't need to work on, or whatever, right? I'm not a coach, right? You know what I'm saying? But I'm sure that if you have a good coach and they're looking at this, they'll be able to help. Be like, oh shit, we need to work on this, or we need to not do this, or hey, the next matchup maybe needs to be this, right? Because I've seen, and I'm sure you can agree, people who have good matchmakers and good promoters and good people behind them, they match them up properly through their career, man. They fight the right people at the right time.
I'll tell you a resource that is being actively used. So I was in combat sports for 12 years.
Yeah.
When I first started, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's this online resource called Tapology.
Yeah.
And all Tapology really is like a library of fights. But even that, even like this postmortem of all these MMA fights and boxing fights and Muay Thai and kickboxing, it creates a library of your previous fights. So like if you Google my name, you'll find my Tapology and you'll find all the fights I ever had.
Yeah.
That is relatively new within this decade.
Yeah.
Previous to me, someone could come up to you and be like, I'm 30-0 as an amateur, and you wouldn't be able to tell them right from wrong because it was never cataloged, right?
Excellent. It's like BoxRec, right?
Yes, like BoxRec. BoxRec is the boxing version of Tapology.
By the way, I'm on BoxRec. They have the doctors on there.
Really?
Yeah, so you can see how many fights. Yeah.
That you've...
Yeah, for boxing or kickboxing.
But not that you've participated in, but that you've acted as a physician.
And you can see the referees and all that stuff.
I like that. So that
awesome.
you could also grade the people. I actually wish that was a thing for MMA as well.
Yeah, they
because
need. I think so.
The more I talk to state athletic commissioners, the judges, and everybody else, there are some judges that I know that have judged like five 5,000 fights.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you
Not
want.
500, 5,000.
Yeah.
And whoever that guy is, he shouldn't be getting paid the same as much as the guy
who did 10
doing
fights.
100, 200.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be like rude.
No,
like,
but
you know
it is
I mean?
what it is. It
You got to
is
pay
what
for
it is.
experience.
It is
I
what
think
it
the
is.
same thing with like one of the things that in the business that I'm bringing up is like, you know, we're talking to Tim with some stuff, and it's like, it's funny how like uniform a lot of these costs are, and I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Because people aren't uniform.
Yeah.
There's some judges that are better than others. There's some physicians that are better than others. There's some state athletic commissioner, not commissioners, but like state athletic employees within the commission that are better than others. And it was funny to me to think that it was all like a uniform price. I'm like, that's interesting. That might be something we dive into in another conversation. But to bring it back to what we're talking about now, the last overarching question I have for you is, I understand from a high point, and I'm going to articulate this just to kind of catch everybody to speed, so that you and this individual that you had a relationship with in school, you guys vibed, broke off, but still kept together. You have a certain skill set. He has a certain skill set. You're kind of melding the both for a new product that has the capabilities to measure things, pieces of data that previously were only able to be measured after someone was deceased, and then if they dedicated their life to science or after their death were, you know, signed whatever
they
documents
donated
they had to
their
sign.
brain, you know, to
yes
to some guy to cut it up.
and then
basically.
you had to do that, but it's exclusively with the deceased. And then what you're trying to do is saying like, okay, this is where they were at age 70. But we don't know if that was at
What the hell's going on at 35? You know what I'm saying?
30, at
There
40,
has to be
what
something.
have you. Now what you're saying is you guys are developing a tool that could actively measure a lot of, or not measure, forgive me. The measurement is a separate phase 2. Phase 1 is to observe the impacts of a lifestyle could be heavy.
Right now, it's like, let's get in there and get way more data than we got now.
To see while they're alive.
Way more data, right?
Let me ask you this question. Why has this not been done before?
I don't know. I think a couple reasons. I think interventional neurology is a newer field. Okay. This is something that's developed recently, right? And I think that a lot of people who are in these very specialized field, they may not be entrepreneurial. They may not be thinking like this, right? And I think it's just because of, and how many doctors have you met who are ringside physicians? I mean, not many, right? You know,
literally 3.
That's what I'm saying.
Literally
right?
3.
So I think a
years.
lot of all the, you know, I'm getting passionate and I'm getting excited, right?
Please.
Because I'm like, holy shit, right? But they're not gonna think that. They're not. I mean, why would they think that? They don't know. You know what I'm saying? They haven't been to a fight.
Meaning your
seen these
peers.
things.
Meaning your peers.
Yeah. They're not. How would they know? Like, and the same thing. If there's like a urologist, right, who works with that part of the body, like. They may think of something that there's no way in hell I'm going to think of it because I don't even do it. You get what I'm saying?
Is it safe to assume that your partner was the one that came to you with the theory and you're applying the practical application?
That's correct. He came with me with the theory on how we can make this a better tool for him to do his current job.
And you were like,
and I'm like, hell yeah. And then I'm like, holy crap, this can go over here. And then that's when this whole phase started on this other side. Did you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, long story short, right? If we're able to develop this, which, like I said, we're all in. There's no doubt about it. We're all in. Like, we're going for it. You know what I'm saying? If we are able to develop this for the practical use, right, of strokes and embolisms and stuff like this, and it hits, right, then the floodgates are going to open for funding for research and development in CTE and combat sports. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes. But forgive me, I have one more question.
Yeah.
To what end? Is this for, with this data, what are we hoping to achieve with it? Preventative care, reactive care. What is the end goal? So let's say in a perfect world, you achieve all the things that you want.
Three things.
What do you want from
three
this?
things. Preventative measures, diagnostic measures, and treatment. So let's say we go in, right, and we have the data and we figure out, oh, you need to measure this or you need to look for this or whatever it is, right? Okay, now we know, right? Okay, so then once we know, then we can come up with the treatment. If you don't know what the hell to do, then how are you going to come up with a treatment, right? You know what I'm trying to say? First, you need to figure out what you need to, first you need to just look, right? First, you need to look and collect data. Then you need to figure out, okay, we have this data, what's correlated with X? Once you figure that out, then you figure out treatment. That's how that works.
Can I do a step further?
Yeah.
Apply a little bit of my application to you.
Sure.
Let's say with your product, earlier in this conversation, we talked about headgear, right? But a lot of the things that I discussed about headgear was specific to my anecdotal evidence.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I thought it made my head bigger. I thought it reduced
Yeah.
my vision. But if we allow for sensors in both mouthpiece, glove, and perhaps also headgear,
Who knows? Yeah,
then
yeah.
we can calculate the amount of force that I'm receiving from that amateur bout.
There you go.
And then maybe we could also have fights where we have no headgear.
Yeah.
And then do the reciprocal kind of
Yeah. Exactly.
diagnostic
Exactly.
comparison of like,
Yeah.
okay, either I'm onto something or I'm onto bullshit. And maybe it is the inverse. And actually headgear helps you. And
Yeah.
then I have to eat what I say because the numbers have dictated it so.
Exactly.
That's step one. Step two would then also be like, if I feel as like I'm 35 and as we discussed earlier in this conversation that perhaps now I am a high risk athlete, well, maybe what I can do is I can go into a doctor and see, do I have, tissue in my brain that is damaged? And if I don't, then even though I should be at risk, I'm technically not. Or
Exactly.
maybe I'm
Yeah.
32
Yeah.
and I've been through some fucking wars.
Yeah.
And even though I shouldn't be at risk,
You are.
maybe I am.
Exactly.
And then the last is taking on all this data and then also being able to measure it in real time with what we could see.
That's correct.
Then we could diagnose someone who maybe is at 33, 34, 35 instead of, and I say this with like sincerity. I'm not trying to be like, perhaps we could save a life literally from someone
Yes.
that commits, unending themselves.
Yeah.
Or perhaps someone who, because of CTE, who has gone undiagnosed, perhaps like has a hormonal
Imbalance or
imbalance
something.
and maybe now produces less testosterone, so he has a less quality of life. Or perhaps he produces less dopamine when he should, so he has chronic depression. And there are real world applications to step one and two. Step one was let's measure. Step two is let's see. Step three is let's treat.
That's correct.
But they're all only possible if it exists.
That's correct, man. And that's what we're trying to do, right? This is not like it's not like we're saying we have all the answers. We're not saying that
you're
blah
trying
blah
to
blah.
find them.
But we're going all in, and we're gonna do it. And we thank God we've been in this position, right? There's a reason that we're friends. There's a reason we met. There's a reason why this is happening. I firmly believe that,
I
right?
do as well.
And we're both passionate in our own regard, right? We're taking this very seriously, right? And people can say what they want, they can do this or they can do that, but what I'm telling you is that we're going all in, okay? And we are gonna go full force. And because of our passion and my passion for combat sports, because of what I'm doing, right? If this device does come out and it does do what it's supposed to do, right? Then that could be the turning point in my life where my day job is bye-bye, okay? And I totally shift gears, right? And then now my life is dedicated to this.
To your passion.
That's it. And then we talked about that last time, right? What am I going to do, right? Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but right now we're going to try and see what goes on. And if it doesn't happen, whatever, I'm still good, right? But as of right now, at this point in our life, at this age, right? This is something we both are passionate about, right? And we're both going to go for it. And we'll see where it takes. But so far, so good, right? I know that we've talked about Faruqi coming down, so I know he's going to be coming down here hopefully in the next few months, right?
I want that so
You know,
badly.
and he can break it down. Hopefully, we have a few more patents that are kind of done, so we can be a little bit more open about
Whenever
stuff.
you guys
yeah,
want.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever, because we still got to protect ourselves and whatnot,
Of
right?
course, of course.
But we're
And
on
my
course.
goal with this, more than anything, is not necessarily to divulge information that you're not ready to.
Yeah.
It's more or less to have the conversation. And there are a lot of people that I know that are entrepreneurs in industries that I hate to say it, but like, I have a trucking company. We literally ship produce. How sexy is taking bananas from point A to point B? Not that sexy, but lucrative.
Yeah.
Then I have this podcast, which is a little bit more sexy, not as much lucrative. Then there's the endeavor that I have that we're kind of cooking up right now, which is
Yeah.
very sexy and very lucrative.
Yeah.
Best of both worlds. But what I love about what you guys are doing is it is similar. It is, in my opinion, I'm a little biased. I love this shit. I think it's very sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that what the issue that you guys are trying to tackle, if can be done properly, can literally change lives.
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, there are three things that I have. Number one, create jobs, because it makes me feel really fucking good to provide paychecks to people so that they can facilitate their lifestyle, their families, and all this other stuff. right?
Absolutely.
Number one. Number two, provide a product or a service that can change lives.
Yeah.
What is my value add to society? What is my life's work culminating? If it's just to acquire wealth, I could go on Wall Street and do that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man.
So then what is it that I'm trying to do? And then lastly is that portion, is the acquire wealth. Because I don't care what anybody says. You cannot make any change in this world without capital.
Yeah.
And anybody who tells
is
you
what
any
it is.
different
It is what
doesn't
it is,
have
man.
capital.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say is that
You need all three.
The first phase, right? If we can apply this to, let's say that this device now is used as a gold standard everywhere, right? Well, we're gonna have a lot of options available on to spend on research and development, and then we'll figure it out. You get what I'm trying to say? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
100%.
And then,
Can I extrapolate that?
yeah.
If you have a product that is worth money, people
Yeah.
will pay for it. And then that payment will then go into the research and development, the growth of it,
Exactly,
and then
man.
ultimately the application of it, is what
That's
you're
what I'm
trying to
trying-
say.
that's what I'm trying
If
to
we're
say.
on to something,
Yeah.
people will pay for it. And if people will pay for it,
Yeah.
it'll then be like this
Yeah.
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
And then it'll become
To say we're going to
successful.
develop this device to study CT on the first go, that who's going to pay for that? Like, that's not
Unless
gonna
you have the
happen.
money yourself, no one.
Exactly. So that's what we're trying to do: get the money ourselves first with the first application, and then go
Can
this way.
I ask you a question on that point? And forgive me because we're
It's good. It's cool.
when you say like to get the money first, can you extrapolate that? Like, are you looking for investors? Are you looking for research and development? Like, what vision does that take for you?
Once, like I said, once we have our full patent, right? That's the time for investors. Right now, right? We are developing the product. We have engineers working on the product. We're gonna have a prototype of the product. We have to do, we have some steps.
There's
to
a
go
lot of
through, right?
leg room for you
There's some
guys
stuff
to-
to go through, and then get this all done, right? Once we have that all finalized, right? Then we'll see where we're at and what we need. Make sense?
God
And yeah,
bless.
there will be times where we need investors. There's gonna be all that is gonna be there, right? But the first step is, like I said, we're patent pending. We have the provisional patent. Now we have the idea locked in, right? It's registered and everything, right? But now we have to do good on that and actually be like, look, here it is. You get what I'm saying? And it's gonna work, right? And once we have that, that'll be the next phase. But I think over the next year that I think that's gonna happen, right? And it'll be a very exciting time, right? And we'll see how it goes, right? But we're both truly passionate about this. You know what I'm saying? He's also now, Faruqi is going to be coming to our ARP conference, and he's getting involved in Ringside too, just to kind of get some idea, right? You know what I'm saying? He's been educating me a lot on the neurovascular side of things, right? I mean, we talk, on a weekly basis, right? So it's cool because the times that we were sitting in medical school, you know what I'm saying, dreaming, right, and talking, we're able to continue that. But now we can do something with that. You know what I'm saying? Before it was just, big talk, right? You know what I'm trying to say? But now we're like, yo, this shit is happening, bro. Let's do this. You know what I'm saying? Let's make it happen, baby.
This is what I was saying
Yeah.
about earlier in this
And
conversation.
the craziest thing about life is that Dr. Faruqi came to St. Louis to visit me, and there was a Shamrock show, and he came and followed me, and that was your last fight. He was in the back with us.
You
right?
and your business
how
partner
crazy is
stitched
that?
me
How
up.
crazy is that shit, bro? Like, you know
I
what I'm
would.
saying?
Can I say something to you completely unrelated?
Yeah.
I am not the biggest believer in God. I am.
Sure.
I am. However, I will say this. As I age, there seems to be a direct correlation between divine intervention corresponding me with individuals that are like-minded
Yeah.
and kind of creating this Venn diagram. I said this earlier in this conversation, but we had that lunch, and your passion and what you guys were working on, it's the example of what I give to people now about entrepreneurship. It's not about creating something that's already been created. It's about searching for the thing that hasn't been done yet. And if you can do that,
That's it,
sky's the
man.
limit.
Exactly.
But
man.
it also takes a certain kind of people because you guys could be at any moment that you wanted to. You and your business partner could be content.
Yeah.
You guys are fine.
Yeah.
But there's just something striving to you. The reason I have this painting, there are 7 deadly sins in the world. And in my opinion, I'm willing to debate this with anyone, the least worst of all the 7 deadly sins is greed. Because
Fair
enough greed can propel someone to want more. And to want more could also increase the quality of life about all those around them and the world.
Yeah.
And this is like an example of, and it sounds obtuse and it sounds all these other things, but if this is everything that you say it is, and that everything that you think it could be, it could change medicine.
Yeah.
And is that not the the ultimate goal of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's
Not to change medicine,
yeah.
but to change the world.
Change the game, bro. You know what I'm saying? Change the game. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, man, like, you know, I'm here. I'm fully committed to combat sports. You know what I'm saying? And I am always going to be there. And I have made that something a part of my life, as everybody knows, right? And it doesn't stop cage side. It doesn't stop
You
outside
wouldn't
the
have
boxing
this
ring.
if you didn't have that.
Exactly, right? It's not stopping there, right? Like you said in the last podcast, we want to protect fighters in training. We want to protect fighters after they finish their career. We want to give them the tools to protect themselves against CTE. We want to develop medications to help with CTE. Like, this is not, hey, I'm coming to the show and I'm going to sit there and it's going to be cool and take some pictures and I'm going to go back to work on Monday. No, man. If it was up to me right now, right, and I didn't have any responsibilities and I had the capital, I would just go all in on this and figure it out, man. I'm telling you, right? But you have to go through steps and you can't just, you know, go all straight shoot to the top, right? But we're trying to set ourselves up so then that can be a possibility and that we can dedicate our lives more to this and that we can focus on this, because how many physicians do you see out there that have dedicated their lives to stuff like this? Nobody. You know what I'm saying? They're not. You know what I'm trying to say? Yes, we have team doctors. Yes, we have this, we have this, we have that, we have the third, right? But to say that a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money have been spent in combat sports for this type of stuff just for the safety of the fighter, just to provide them the information they need, come on, man. You know that's not true, right? You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's what I'm trying to do. And it's very exciting because in medicine, like, they're like, oh, you're in the hospital, like, oh, this is sepsis protocol, oh, this is this protocol, this is that protocol, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. Or they're like, okay, right? There's all these things that they've developed already that you're supposed to follow, that's the gold standard or whatever. But in combat sports, they know there's nothing. You know what I'm trying to say? We started
It's still the wild
It's
west.
the wild west, right? And it's great to be a part of something where your knowledge, your passion, your experience, like minds come together and are trying to figure out what's going on in the wild west, when everywhere else everybody's already telling you what to believe and what you should do, and don't ask questions, and this is how it is, right? That's how medicine is. Take the vaccine, take this medicine, do this, don't do that, you don't want to do this, you're crazy. Right? Like, you're anti this, you're anti that, right? I mean, that's what happens, right? You know what I'm saying? But in this, you don't have that. And I think you can get into it with a less of a bias, right? And really try to figure it out and really try to give back. And for me, that's my legacy, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to be known for knocking people out, right? But if I'm known at the end of the day, they'd be like, yo, this guy like figured some shit out, man. And it was very helpful. And it built on this and the third, right? And I think that's what I can give to the sport, right? Is that part of it, right? And that's what I'm going to try to do, man. Let's make it happen, baby. And we're going to need an ambassador, athlete ambassador. Obviously, your name has come up, right? So we're going to...
I'm retired, bro.
You're retired.
I'm not an athlete anymore.
But what I'm saying is that we're going to need, going further, we're going to need fighters. We're going to need former fighters. We need to talk to you guys and be like, yo, how did you feel like this? What happened, right? You know what I'm trying to say? And this is not like because we want to stop you from fighting. It's like we need to figure out, like, yo, honestly, bro, what the fuck happened?
Dude, I
get what I'm trying to say?
I could sit here and tell you why I stopped fighting.
But you know what
I
I'm
mean?
saying. You know what I'm saying? But
I know exactly
But
what
we
you're
need to
saying.
talk to these people where they can come to us and tell us, like, yo, this is actually how I felt.
Are you looking for that?
Not yet, but we will. We're going to need that eventually, right? We're going to need eventually to be like, yo, listen, man, like, I know you said this, right? You know what I'm saying? At the time.
And you put this,
but bro, like, what happened when you went home? You know what I'm saying?
When that time comes...
With no repercussions with that information, the only thing is trying to help us develop these things and to understand these things.
When that time comes, please let me know.
Hell yeah, man. And anybody out there, like anybody local who's a medical student, who's a college student, who's a high school student, who wants to be involved in research, who wants to help in any way, right? If this goes, we're going to need your help. And St. Louis is going to be a hub for this, right? You know what I'm saying? If somebody has said, oh, I have to do a research project in college, and like if I had the opportunity to do something with combat sports, oh my God, that would be amazing, right?
And it's not tied to just combat sports.
Anything
that involves head trauma.
Anything, right? Anything like that. So if anyone's interested, reach out. You know what I'm trying to say? We'd love to get you involved. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, no way, shape, or form are we trying to make the sport less competitive. No way are we trying to restrict it. I like seeing people get knocked out. I mean, I do. I'm not gonna lie,
a fan
right?
as well.
I love going to fights. It's something I love to do, and I'm gonna continue to do that, right? But at the same time, right, we're gonna try to digest it, get the information we need, figure this out, and be like, hey, man, look, here it is, bro. There you go. Do what you want, man. But this looks like what's going on. And if you do decide this happens, that happens, come see me. We can do this or that. You get what I'm trying to say? At least give some options, right?
The beauty of everything that you've said tonight, including your work and what you're trying to do, is that you are not trying to sway what someone can or cannot do.
No, you can do whatever you want.
All you have tried to do
Yeah.
is say, this is where the chips lie.
That's it.
Make whatever move you want.
Yeah.
But at the very least, you can't say that you were ignorant to
Yeah,
your
not even that.
actions.
And some people make decisions because they think the chips are not where they are, right? And that's what you want to avoid, right? You don't want to make a bad decision because you believe or somebody made you believe
Bad information.
that's bad information, right? You need to at least have accurate information and make whatever decision you want with that information, right? If somebody comes to me and I'm like, stop smoking, right? And they're like, okay, and they don't stop smoking, well, that's on you, man, what you do, right? Or if somebody comes in and I'm like, you got diabetes, you need to cut down your sugar, right? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I could educate you, right? You know what I'm saying? And what you do. And maybe you don't do exactly what I say, but maybe you do half of what I say, and that makes you live 5 more years, right? Makes sense? So anyway, I've noticed, like in medicine, right? If you tell people and talk to people like you're the word of God, and if you don't do what I say, you're gonna die and crash, right?
Good
People
luck.
are not going to respond positively to that, right? And I think the way to do it is give them the information, give them practical ways, right? To try to accomplish these things, right? You know what I'm saying? Focus on the areas that you think they're actually going to improve on. Don't spend, 1 hour talking to somebody about something they're not going to do. Talk to them 1 hour on these other things that they probably will do and try to get a positive result. Just because you tell somebody they have a certain diagnosis doesn't make you a good doctor, right? What makes you a good doctor is that they do something based on the information you give them that makes their life better. I mean, that's what I think. You know what I'm saying? You can be like the smartest guy in the world, and you tell people you have this and you have that, and your patient's like, screw this guy, I ain't doing what he says. Right? Then what was your point? What was your point? What was the point,
God
right?
bless.
What was the point, right? And if you come to a doctor and you leave and you feel better and you have a better idea of what you need to do to accomplish these goals, right? That's my opinion on what's a good doctor. And that's what I want to do with combat sports, right? I'm not telling people they should or shouldn't do anything. I'm saying, listen, bro, this is the deal, okay? And you should make educated, smart decisions in your career, right? Maybe you shouldn't fight this guy right now. Maybe you should train a little bit more on this stuff. Maybe, you know what I'm trying to say? You should get matched up with this guy, right? Maybe you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about doing it or not doing it, but doing it smart is usually going to lead to a better outcome.
We often say that the greatest disinfectant is sunlight. And what we
Yeah.
mean by that is that transparency.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
we mean by transparency is information.
Yeah.
Why then, if we don't see that in other aspects of life, we wouldn't see it in this one?
And I just want to wrap up with this, but is that traditionally people are afraid because they think that a doctor is going to give them information that somehow is going to restrict them. That has been the problem in sports. We don't want to hear that shit, bro. They're gonna not let
Or
us do
they'll
this,
be
right?
rebellious and
Exactly right.
I'll prove you
But-
wrong.
But what we're saying is that this information and these things we're doing is for the athlete. It's not for this guy or that guy or anybody else. It's for you. It's for you. It's for you guys, right? It's for you to know, not anybody else.
Dr. Munshi, I enjoyed the first time you were on this podcast. I really enjoyed the second time you were on this podcast. But now, more than ever, I cannot wait till the third time you guys are on this podcast.
Yeah, man. We're
You and your
hopefully we'll have
business
some
partner,
good- yeah,
I know
we'll-
we had a conversation before.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that invitation is always present to you guys.
Yes,
and
sir.
I cannot wait to have you both in office to talk a little bit more about this in the coming time.
Let's do
And
it.
by the way, by that time too, we will have announced
Yes,
our
sir.
thing.
Good news.
And I hope that you alluded to this earlier, but like you have like-minded individuals in similar fields, and you can symbiotically help one another. I can't wait to see what we can do together.
Hey, man, it's time to change the game. You know what I'm saying? We're all from St. Louis. We're in this game. You know what I'm trying to say? We're going to be here for a long time. You know, all of us here who have passion, who have love for the sport, who are our generation, we need to stick together, not divide one another. Let's do this together. And I think that in St. Louis, with how things are set up here, with how our commission is, with how the sporting world is, I mean, this could definitely be one of those cities where the fighting game around the clock could be one of the biggest in the country. I truly believe that, and I think that we just need to keep building off of these type of things, and I think we have all the ability to make it happen, man.
God bless, brother.
Take it easy, man. Good.
Dude.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you.